We are live, everyone. So we are what? Rusty Musty Wargamers, this episode 4?
Yep. Something like that.
So episode 4 with special guest Dan Buman. Thank you for joining us, Dan.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Great to have you on the show. Looks like we already have two folks in the room. It looks like we have Brad and Nick, if I'm correct. Both Lord Draconum and Very Silent Mouse. Thanks for joining in for the show. And so so we're doing a bit of a paint and chat, and we're doing a bit of a mix tonight. We have topics, and we're doing a little painting as well. And so I don't know, guys, if you want to just we'll do just a bit of a round table here, what we've been up to as far as, or not, given the nice discussion being in the hobby. I've been kind of very open about in the past shows how I've done very little lately, but I don't know, Dan, if you want to talk at all about, what you've been up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been, like I talked with the guys before the show, and we'll get into that more, but the fall has come my busy time with my work, so I'd kind of dropped out of the hobby quite a bit. I mean, I haven't done anything, but finally, I would say about the last 3 weeks, it just slowly starting to get enthused. And one of the things, this is what I'm actually working on. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Flying Frog Productions does a game. It's called Shadows of Brimstone.
I've heard of it.
It's a dungeon crawl type. It's sort of Warhammer Quest. It's like the offspring of that, only like on steroids. Anyway, that was what got me back into painting in like 2013 after being out for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I thought, maybe if I get back into that was, and it did. It actually kind of sparked my. And so I've been here. I don't know if you can be able to see it, but here's one of the things. Anyway, it's set in the Wild West, like 1800, late 1800s, and during the cowboy, genre. And it's a situation where you go into the mines in the dungeon crawl and explore, and then there's these gates that open to these other worlds, and so you can. It's unlimited what you can fight. You can go to this. There's one's a jungle world, and one's a snow world, and a lava world, and one's a space station you explore. So you can paint all kinds of stuff. Normally I don't paint science fiction. I don't paint some of those. So that's been fun. But anyway, that's what I've actually painted up quite a few in the last few weeks and really got my mojo back. So that's what I've been working on.
Yeah. That's very cool. I mean, I think sometimes doing something different is the thing to get the mojo back. Fine, we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, exactly. I shouldn't have said that in more detail.
I shouldn't have said that. That's a spoiler. I'm assuming coffee or water, or what do you have? Is your musty drink tonight? Or
I personally spaced it off. I had happy hour with my wife earlier, so I'm already primed.
Okay, there you go.
I just had Captain Morgan and Coke.
There you go.
I'm a one a night guy, so that's all I get.
I hear you. How about you, Rusty? Oh, one thing I would say, I know one thing that Rusty's been doing is he's been taking kung fu lessons, and he's going to show you just how good he is at his kung fu right now.
Hey, get off the Hercules.
Right. It is. It's like it needs subtitles. It's like
So, Rusty, what
been watching
Rusty, what have you been up to? And what was your musty drink?
Well,
of course.
It's like my musty drink. Oh, yeah. Better take that sucker out. I have a bottle of Jameson cold brew.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
I've never had that before.
It's very stoutish, literally. It's like it's kind of coffee. It's got a coffee aspect to it.
Nice.
Hopefully it doesn't have caffeine.
So it's a beer that's actually kind of in Jameson casks or something like that, or?
It's actually isn't it whiskey, or what is it?
Yeah, it's Jameson whiskey. It smells. Yeah, it definitely has that.
That's just the good
vanilla
stuff there.
So then, why do they call it a cold brew? Just out of curiosity.
Let me see. It's Jameson Irish whiskey infused with naturally cold brewed coffee flavor.
Okay, it's the brew is about the coffee.
So-
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and it's
Mhm.
got some dark. It's dark like coffee.
Oh, it is.
Well,
Nice.
Motor
it
oil.
has an aspect. It does smell like coffee. So if you people drink coffee, I don't.
I don't.
But
I
It-
like coffee, but I don't drink it anymore that much. So
Yeah, I don't
or at
either.
all.
Or
I
at
drink
all.
I drink tea. Not that I'm not off the caffeine, but I kind of stopped on the coffee. It was a bit much for me.
definitely tastes like coffee.
hmm
It's like an
Huh.
Irish coffee.
Yeah.
Well, that's different. I don't know. It's like that bottle might be getting given away to somebody that drinks coffee. I
Yeah.
just bought it on a whim. But,
Should have guessed it. Yeah.
I
yeah.
like still to have things that taste like coffee. I love the taste of coffee, but
I love the smell of coffee even.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez. Oh
yeah,
gosh.
me too.
Yeah, I always said about coffee is like, how can something smell so good, taste so bad?
Needs more sugar.
Well,
Yes,
it's one of those things. A lot of people feel that way about beer.
I'm gonna have to put some cream in this or something, but I'll finish it off. But yeah, it's like actually, if you had a drink that needed like put a dollop of ice cream in this, that'd be interesting.
So what have you been working on, Rusty? I've been seeing you've been putting up
I
videos.
slowly, it's like the same problem that the three amigos here have been having problems with is motivation. It's like I had got literally hardly anything done in the last 2 weeks because hey, it's Christmas break and well, my wife has been around, so it's like I don't get
Mhm.
much done during the holidays. But I've been working on some BattleTech stuff. I have a little bitty infantry here, 6
mil.
for
Yeah.
BattleTech. Got those little guys done.
So are those
my camera.
are those old vintage or is this Kickstarter stuff?
This is vintage.
Okay.
This is old school. This is the old let's see,
Ralpartha?
where's it at? Let's see. This is who did make this? Yeah, this is old Ralpartha stuff here.
Oh, there you go.
So
Cool.
got the old Ralpartha. Oh, did I just
There we go.
reset? Yeah, it's like the old Ralpartha BattleTech blister. Like I got a whole smattering of stuff here. Let me just see.
Is that stuff you
really
bought
what I
back in? Did you buy that back in the day, or is this stuff you've bought more recently?
This blister here is my brother's. Working on some of his stuff. And like here's the even older BattleTech. This is the blue label Ralpartha.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
As you're getting ready to peel that open, there'd be some people who's like it'd be like a spike through their brain.
Oh,
Like,
they
you know,
pass out. Yeah.
Yeah, they would just like not be able to even handle it. You know, like if
I'm
you
just-
open that.
I'm just curious. Is like this was $6. So a $6 blister. Now it's like $30 to buy something like that.
Yeah.
I would think at least that.
It's like, yeah, it's like heck, you could buy a mech for $2 to $3. Now it's like you're talking $10 to $20.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's I've been working on these mechs here. It's like a little bit of work on these. These are going to be House Merrick mechs. You see some of those. I have. That was a Merlin. This is you watched one of my last update videos I put out. An Uziel. I've been slowly cranking on these. I did a smattering of stuff. I got these, like this is Clan mech here. Got the base colors down on it.
Yeah.
So now I just gotta go in and work on stuff. So it's been a little bit of BattleTech. And then I messaged Dan.
Mhm.
Got this little bugger. Might be this. This is a Tamiya kit. There we go.
Nice.
Oh, it's a Russian armored car BA-64B. It's gonna get built and painted, and hopefully it might find its way over to where Dan is.
I can blow it up.
Yeah. Recon out. Oh no. It's like one shot, one kill. All you need is probably a heavy machine gun to take those things out. But,
Yeah, but it's got recce, so you just keep backing out every time you take a shot.
yeah. Run away.
Run away.
That's
Impossible.
that you have to be talking about bolt action, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because I remember from the first edition, I remember the recce rule. Even then, that was
Yeah, because you'd
thing.
shoot at something and you'd forget it had the recce rule, and they'd just be like, "Oh, I'm out."
My favorite thing about the U.S. was the airstrikes.
It's so unpredictable, though. You'd blow yourself up sometimes, but
then the random nature of which plane comes in, and it being like an attack bomber or something like that, it was just like whichever the second to third most powerful, like the most powerful or the second most powerful when they came in. It was
like a 4-inch template, and
toast.
I won a game on one of those on the second turn or third turn. It came in right away, blew the building up that had all of his guys in it that I needed to kill for the mission, and I won it right there. So,
good.
They're not best. You don't take them to tournaments, but it's fun to just play with your buddy.
They are fun though. Like it is fun, particularly if you're playing the Americans.
Yeah, because you get the extra one, or I forget what it is. It's been a while since I taken.
I didn't think anybody else had aircraft, and so you had that advantage. But other people, you could still do artillery.
Some of them could take them, but the Americans, it's the obvious choice, I think, because you can take.
Two per game.
You
or
could
something,
get two or something. It was something.
Maybe that's what it was.
Anyway, sorry,
but I loved it. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun game.
So, Rusty, are you good? Shall I go, or are you still showing stuff? I didn't mean to interrupt it. I'm not sure if we interrupted you.
I got a whole smattering of stuff sitting here that I've been working on. So if you come over to my channel and watch my my latest video, you probably will see them all. So not much to see.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would say is just hello to Clark. Clark has joined us, and so while we were chatting, and so hello, Clark, in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I don't have anything other than the latest video I just put up for my Beastmen. So I did 5 Beastmen, and I just put a video up there with the old Bob Ollie style, and I am working now on the next 5. I had people over for the holidays and work, and so I got very little time done. I was sort of just getting stride with them, and then had to wait a week and a half to 2 weeks to week and a half or so, like to get started with them again and finish them off. But I actually, once everybody left, the weekend they left, I actually got right to painting and finished them off. So it was kind of a nice feeling to get them done. Then did the video the next day. So it was kind of nice to be able to put a video on. It's been so long. And so I did that, and that's pretty much it. I haven't played a Marvel game in a while, but I was on a streak of playing, 3 or 4 Marvel games and really enjoying it and painting Marvel miniatures. And then this is sort of, a little bit of a break and doing something different. As far as the Musty drink, I got a bunch of tall boys of different beers that are brewed in Asheville, kind of smaller breweries. This one's called, and I think this one, they told me that all of them are Asheville, and most of them seem to. This one's actually Red Deer. It's not Asheville, Troubled Monk. And this is the Daycation Lager, 4.7%. Never had it before. And so going to have one of these on the show. This is my last one of the bunch that I was given over the holidays. And so looks like typical lager, pretty blonde, but yeah, lots of foam.
Cheers.
Cheers. So so I have lots of things as far as that I think I'll mesh with the topics that I'd like to do that I haven't been doing that maybe we'll chat about, but I won't expand on that anymore at this point. And so we have 3 topics tonight, in addition to whatever painting we can get done. We're kind of new to the whole paint and chat, and as deep as the conversation gets and as we're exciting, and as much as the comments come through, we'll see how much we can get done as far as painting. But yeah, like the first topic was the whole getting back into the hobby after having a break and feeling like the funk, not having your mojo, and just and particularly I think for us 3 tonight, it's more about an extended break, or like an uncharacteristic feeling of just disconnectedness, or lack of interest, etc. As all three of us, I think, have recent comments about that. And so, Dan, as the guest, would you like to jump in first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we were talking a little bit before the show started, and this year was the first time I kind of got back into painting after taking like 10 or 12 years off while my kids were growing. That I actually got to where I came down to do some painting, and I just couldn't do it. I wasn't interested. I'd lost complete interest in the hobby, and I never had that, which was weird to me. I know I couldn't quite explain it, but I'd come off of a busy. I was painting good through the spring and summer, in between being busy, which is normal for me, and then I went into the fall harvest period, which was a little bit more grueling this year, maybe than some, and it lasted a little bit longer. I don't know if that was some of it. Then once that kind of wrapped up at Thanksgiving time, I came down, and usually anytime after I'm busy for a few weeks or whatever, I get into a busy stretch, or maybe even 3-4 weeks, I can come down here, and within, maybe not really excited to go down, but I'll come. It's in the basement where my hobby room is, and I come down and I kind of sit at the desk and start kind of, looking through what I'm working on, or looking at what I got setting out, and they start picking it up, and pretty soon it's like I never quit, and I'm just filled with passion again. I'm excited, I'm relaxed, and I'm having fun. But this time I came down, I didn't come down for like a week or more after I was kind of getting slowed down with my work. And finally I'm like, well, I should go down and start messing around. And I came and sat on the chair, turned the lights on, and nothing. I was just like, it was like a hobby that I'd never done, had no interest in. And somebody said, hey, why don't you try, doing this? And you're just not into it. So it kind of was weird, because then I thought, well, what is the matter? So I let it go, because, it's supposed to be fun, right? But it kind of bothered me a little bit, because that was my one, like I told Palmer and Rusty, it's not like I'm busier than anybody else, but I'm busier than maybe I would like to be, and at times I get way busier. And so I've cut my hobby stuff and my time off down to basically just this hobby. And I do a little board gaming, but outside of that, it's literally painting miniatures, making terrain, and occasionally getting the game in. And I'm not content with that. But I thought, wow, if I don't even have an interest in this anymore, why is that? And it lasted for weeks. And but then then I got thinking, kind of, and I think it was sort of a seasonal thing. It reminded me back when I got back into painting in 2013, I had backed a Kickstarter by Flying Frog Productions that was their big debut of Shadows of Brimstone, which is it's a dungeon crawl game with minis. It's like Warhammer Quest, only just gigantic by comparison. And that got delivered in the fall that year when I was busy, and it was around Christmas time when I finally things slowed down, and I thought, I'm actually going to paint these miniatures. I hadn't painted in years, and I did, and that's what launched me into where I paint. Like, I paint every week for sure, and almost every day, sometimes just a half an hour, or even 20 minutes sometimes, but I'm always in it. And so that I was kind of intrigued, and maybe it was because it was sort of that seasonal thing, getting in, remembering the nostalgia. Not that that was 100 years ago, but I remembered that fun I had with that project. And I think, so I dug out, I had minis left from that Kickstarter, and I did another one after that, which, like, all of us.
How about the idea that every mini is kind of different, like where a lot of them are different?
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of it. Just the premise of the game is it's set in the Wild West in the 1800s, but you go into these mines, and then you go through these gates to these other worlds. And I think, like Palmer said, that was a big thing, that it was something fresh and new. And what I did, I picked one of the other worlds, and there's only like 30 or 40 total miniatures to a world. And so it was sort of a small bite-sized thing. I happened to pick the science fiction one, which I don't paint any, literally zero fun science fiction. And And I think sometimes too, I think the other reason this attracted me was because with my Bretonian project, I I don't know if it's just me, but sometimes I feel kind of some, not pressure, but it's they're old minis. You know, they're not cheap anymore. And a lot of them I didn't pay a ton for. Some of them I paid plenty for. Um, and I'm not
They're
gonna.
valuable.
Yeah, they're valuable, and I've personally dreamed about doing a Bretonian army since the 5th edition game was the current edition, and never did. And so this was always something that was, you know, kind of percolating in the back of my mind, and I felt some pressure. It's like, well, I don't want to mess them up, and I need to
Well,
pick a color scheme that's I'm gonna be happy with because I'm a slow painter, and I, you know, and it was almost analysis paralysis.
when you're actually out of the,
Yeah.
you're in a hobby funk for a bit, and then you're thinking about getting back into it, and you've already painted 50 red coats. How does it feel to paint another 20 or 30?
Yeah, and that was some of it too. And I had, because that was my next thing. I was going to paint up. I had a 20 Bretonian Squire Bowman that I was going to paint. I couldn't quite lock in the paint scheme that I wanted, and then I'm like, oh man, 20 sets of eyes, and it was just like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go there. But on the Shadows of Brimstone, each enemy is usually 3 to 6 miniatures is that enemy type. And so that was a nice little bite-sized chunk. They're not amazing quality miniatures that I felt like I was, you know, I was going to mess them up. Or and you can pick any color scheme you want. Your imagination can just go, and I don't have any problem with that. So, so I think that's, and then yeah, no more than got started on those, and just yeah, fell in love with the hobby again, and I'm painting the last 6 for that other world, and then I'm all jazzed to start on my Bretonian Squires,
Oh, it's good.
and I'm looking forward to getting going. And so yeah, so that was kind of my own solution, my own journey, but it was weird that not ever having had that happen before.
Mhm.
But that was the way I kind of approached it. And then once the passion hit me again, partly through the nostalgia and partly just the idea of doing something different, and I think that solved itself.
I have this image of you going in the bathroom and sticking your tongue out and looking for spots and seeing like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me?
I know. Like I need to talk to a professional. It was bad. It was just weird. I never, you know, well, since 2013, which I know isn't forever, but you know, I was a weekly painter since then.
Mhm.
And so, and I just thought, gosh, looked in this room and I got all this stuff that I've accumulated, all these treasures over all these years. And all of a sudden it was almost like it was meaningless to me. And I thought, wow, that's scary.
Yeah.
But no, I found my way back home. I joined the club again, and everything's good.
There you go. There you go. So Rusty, how about you? What say you on this topic?
Wow. It's like what Dan's been talking about. It was pretty much, what we discussed before is that you're sitting there trying to figure out what am I going to do? It's like analysis paralysis. That's my biggest problem I have is you get a project you want to work on and you're just kind of staring at it. It's like, I got all these BattleTech miniatures just parked behind me, a big stack of them. And we probably got 100 new ones. And my son just ordered another, probably 20. Like, and I was just telling him today, are you going to paint these? He was like, well, no, you can paint them. Like, okay. It's like my motivation right now is kind of on the back burner right now myself. And it's like, and that's my biggest problem is that when you see a large project and someone wants you to work on it and finish it really quick or something of that nature, and or else it's like I have all these miniatures and like, okay, how am I going to paint all these? Where are they going to go? What units are they going to go into? And I'm just sitting there just thinking and thinking and thinking and not doing anything. All you're doing is
Yeah.
thinking about it, and you're not
Well,
doing anything.
But you got to have a plan.
Yeah, so I took them all out. I laid them all out, and I started organizing them into units. And then it's like, my son's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, I'm organizing them into my what I think I want them to do, and what units are there, because there's different factions and stuff, and I'm just trying to figure out what faction I want these things to go into. And that's the biggest thing is like now I have a good idea where the direction I want to go. So I start picking up the paintbrush again. And that was my biggest drawback is just not having a direction. As I was just sitting there spinning and it's like the clockwork is working, but it's not telling time. So it's like that's the big problems I've been having. So it's like when you're talking about the same thing, Dan, it's like, yeah. Sometimes you just sit there and it's like there are days I sit at my desk and I'm just looking and staring. It's like I'm looking at my paints, just staring forward, and like I have a YouTube video going, watching something. That ale looks good right now.
Yeah, I thought it looked good as I was drinking it. I was like, oh, it looks pretty good.
Makes me want to think about it. It's like they have a new release coming out. It's from Confluence Brewing. It's a strawberry blonde ale made with real strawberries. And it's like supposed to be on the market, I think, tomorrow. So I'm thinking I might go and pick some up. So that's what's going through my head right now.
I had I showed you a picture, Rusty, what I had the other day. A couple days ago. It was an English beer, but it looked like a porter, but it had a really distinguished taste. It was really nice. Gosh, actually, I actually took a picture of it and showed it to you, right? But
yes, you sent me, because when you said it, you sent me a picture of the ale, and I was like looking, I was like, well, that looks like a porter, and it's because it was so dark.
Yeah, it's called Abbey Lane. And it's an English mild, and it is a lighter beer. It's like 3.6%. It's not like a really strong one. The funny thing, I'm almost weird about admitting this, but have you ever had a taste that normally would be associated with a bad thing, but actually it's sort of infused in a beer or something like that, and you're like, oh, that's familiar, and you know what, it actually kind of tastes like that, and believe it or not, I don't really mind it. I don't know if this actually had it almost had like an ashy taste, like almost like a really, really like cigarette kind of taste. Like I don't smoke, really? and I've never smoked, but it had like this taste that, and I was like, this actually kind of tastes pretty good. Like I'm sure I read you the ingredients, what it's supposed to taste like, and they didn't say anything like that. But it had this like, and I don't know if it's a roasted burnt kind of taste, maybe is what it is, but I was like, oh, like that has that, like it's a real ashy burnt taste, but it's like kind of good. I kind of like that. It's different. And so like I thought that was pretty neat.
I think I know what happened. And he's like, hey, Bill, what you doing? I'm just smoking my stogie. Well, get away from the open bin over there. Oh, I just dropped my ash in it.
Somebody dumped their ashtray into my beer.
Yes.
Wow, that tastes pretty good. I don't know what that is, but
hey, I think we're onto something.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I guess I did want to actually before I kind of weighed in on this, just say hello to some of the new folks that have come in, because it's been a while since we said hello, and it looks like Todd has joined us.
Hi, Todd.
The robe.
So thanks for joining, and
Yeah,
and we will get to the comments in a moment. But I talked a bit on my channel and even on these shows a little bit about why I didn't, why I kind of had a really extended, and I'm not going to really go into that again because it was sort of like a real stressful time, and that's kind of why I just had almost no time for anything. And my hobby space was turned into a business office too, and that's the worst thing that can ever happen to your hobby space is to actually associate it with something that's not relaxing. You just won't ever look at the miniatures the same way, like when you're in there. And so basically for me, once I was semi-free of that and like kind of just had free time, but I just didn't want to paint, like I didn't have the energy and this and that. I had the same thing. I had, like, for the first time that I can remember, like, no interest, even wondered, like, am I going to be doing this going forward? Like, what's going on? Because I wouldn't admit to myself that I'm not going to do it. Like, like I wouldn't, because it's just so stupid to be like doing this for this long and have this much stuff and just so quickly just feel like it's all going out the door. Like, it's like, what's going on with me, but what got me, what got me sort of back into it were a couple of things. One was actually, I actually kind of got more interested in being in my hobby space and relaxing here when I actually moved all of my business stuff out and cleaned my space a bit. Now, I don't have the cleanest hobby space. For those of you that like looking at all the cardboard stash between the shelving units behind me and all this stuff, like I don't have like the absolute most cleanest hobby space, but just getting it to where I felt like comfortable and like it was more straightened up and everything the way I like it to be, made me like being in here more and seeing this as a place to be in the house again. And then that might sound weird, but it's just like I didn't want to even be in here, you know. And the other thing was the big part of the hobbying for me, like, which I think is the same for you guys, is like I know we all like to play games, but I think we're all big painters. Like like none of us, you know, pay to have our stuff done, and we all really like to paint. Is what I think around the table here, virtual table. A big part of painting for me is and missing painting is truly the working with the materials and like pulling my paints out and just like all of my art supplies and just having the time here and just the tools of the trade and like and so like just kind of refreshing things that I need to get and like just kind of sitting down and being able to work with that stuff again just kind of is really relaxing. Like to me, there's a part of it that's not just the end result for me, it's the actual process. And you know, when you think about like a regular painter, you know, like it's funny, I'm not calling us real painters, but you know, like when you think about, you know, artists, you know, like they go through like training in school, or many of them are self-taught, but they go through and learn how to use all of these things, and it's as much of like the process as the output, you know. And so for me that was fun, just to kind of get through my paints and just straighten everything up and get my brushes out and like do all of this stuff, and just so I can kind of get back into the groove of it again. And then lastly, the thing that got me back interested again in as a project was, one, to do something different than I wasn't doing for the most part. And for me, that was working on an old hammer project, the Beastmen. That I know I always do Beastmen, but these are very different. Like I pulled out my old classic Warhammer armies painting guides and my heavy metal painting guides.
I have that.
Yeah, and I pulled those out to read them and just absorb myself in the nostalgia, like, you know, and basically by doing that, I then started thinking about the miniatures I was going to paint, got really excited because I've been collecting them for years. And like now I'm in this funk, but now I have this opportunity to start this project I've been waiting forever to do. In some ways, it's a little opposite to what you said, Dan, because as much as I totally agree and can understand your approach, I went with something that I was like really intently thinking about, the one miniature, because it was a way to just like delve head first into it. And it's not like 50 miniatures, it's like 5 miniatures. But I was delving into it to think like, I'm only going to get one shot at this. Like, how do I want to do this? You know, because I'm never going to be getting these again. It's unlikely I'll ever will.
So did you plan the paint scheme, or you kind of go what you're feeling at the moment? Like the orange horn things on the one, or the purple?
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a whole, the way you want the whole unit to look, or each guy, or are you just like winging it?
It's a little bit of a mixture. Like I actually thought really heavily about the skin, because I wanted, that's going to be really apparent. Like it's like one of the biggest body surface areas. I've seen enough Nurgle examples and things in the old school kind to know that many folks do very colorful mutations in horns. And I thought I can do that. And that kind of makes sense here. So I didn't think a whole lot about it. I mean, once I did purple, I'm like, what other one should I do? I'll do sort of like a fungoid whitish brown looking one. And then I did like a red one. And those were, I didn't think heavily about that, but I'd seen enough pictures that I kind of knew what I was going to do. But I thought pretty heavily, because you may have, I know you've watched some of my videos where I've mixed some paints to when I've done my giants, and I've made my own flesh tones. And I do like to do that for whatever reason. I like to make my own variations of flesh tones and skin tones, oftentimes using paints that people wouldn't think of, like green or something, you know, for like a regular flesh tone, not for like an orc. And so with this one, that's kind of exactly what I did. Like I actually used brown violet, you know, almost like a World War II color, as their basic, and then I went up from there and lightened it. And basically, you know, I went with something just quite different. Now, so I did kind of plan it out, but my next one that I'm getting ready to do, I might actually put some down tonight. I'm actually going with a bit more of a traditional. I decided I wanted this next group to have, I'm starting with a very simple brown, like a very standard brown, and then I'm going to lighten up from there into a flesh tone and have them still with mutations, but a little less fully necrotic looking, like, you know, like those other ones were. I'm kind of mixing them up a bit, so I'll have 3 different kinds when I finish each pack of 5. So this way, when I unit them up, they're not all just one kind.
Right. Okay.
I often do that. I often will do like 3 kinds for like a unit of 15 and just mix it up. But one of your points, though, like, it's totally, or comments or questions, is totally true, because I actually, for my shields, have very little planning. Like, when I go into the shield, I look at the shape of the shield and I'm like, particularly with my previous ones with the Beastmen, I almost just get the idea at the moment and then just go with it. And I enjoy that, because for whatever reason, I feel like I'm a little more creative that way. The more I think about it, the more I tend to be and plan it with those things. I tend to be more conservative, and I'm more likely to just do all like one kind, or just be very conservative, like, you know, research what other people do. But if I just sort of go, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, like, let's look at the shield, these are Beastmen, they're chaos, like, what's the first thing that comes to my mind, and start doing it, I find that in the end, I'm usually pretty happy, and that, like, I do something a little more unique that way. So but yeah, cool. So that's how I sort of felt about being gone for a bit, and then also how I came back. And you know, it was more like my environment, and, you know, wanting to connect with the hobby, the actual practice of the hobby, and then, you know, finding a project that I'd really get excited about. Yep. So good. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe I'll just go through the comments real quick, because we've been up for a bit here, and just going to skim through here. Looks like Brad's talking about BattleTech that he was doing, and or at least Nick says, "Hey Brad, enjoying your BattleTech on the Facebook." And he's painting up some buildings right now. And let's see here. Thank you very much, Nick, on the Beastmen comment. And we've got Todd says that Dan's space always looks so cool, basement and all.
Downright chilly in the winter.
Yeah. And also, that sounds like Dan's burnout.
I think that's what it was.
And then he got better. So Todd says, regarding motivation, there are seasons in life, and part of this life is taking in all moments. That is true. Let's drink to that.
There you go.
And sometimes those seasons are short, and sometimes they're long. And Clark says, I got back into hobbying when life slowed down a little bit, and not painting BattleTech. Had to break, yeah.
To take a
seasons for everything.
Yeah.
Then there's a song from the late 60s, right? The Birds? Or is that a different? I think it's the Birds.
Straight
turn.
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah. Turn. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's a biblical one. You're right. Good call, Rusty.
Yep. He's the old wise one of the bunch.
That's right.
The old wizard.
Well, back in my day.
And we
not
got
so far behind.
Mini Warmuts in the house. Hello, thanks for joining.
Yay.
I was watching his video today. Yeah, I was looking at the stuff that he's up to for the new year. Lots of exciting projects.
Yeah, I got so far behind on watching videos. I always kind of kept up pretty good, because that's what I do while I was painting and stuff. And I started going back on some people's, and the last one I watched was like September.
Well, and that's actually kind of a good point, because we didn't even talk about that. But for me, YouTube just went out the window. Like, once I stopped hobbying, And
I quit
I
watching.
barely watched videos at all.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even go on
Yeah,
Facebook.
part of my,
much.
I think another thing I have is that I watch most of my videos on my iPad,
Mhm.
and it's about ready to die, I think, on me. So it's like
Okay.
I can't make any comments on it because if I try to, it crashes. And
Mhm.
most of the time when I'm watching a video, it'll crash, and I have to kick it out and start it over again. So I haven't been watching a lot of videos either. So that's a
Mhm.
lot of the problems I've been having. It's like if you're not immersing yourself into the hobby, that also causes problems too. It's like self-fulfilling prophecy, I think.
Well, that I did find that too, just to bring that point up, is when I was trying to get back into it, and it was weird. I was feeling bad that I wasn't watching people's videos because I was, there was quite a large handful, including both of you guys, where I watched every video and I would post a comment every time. And I'm like, I felt like I wasn't like reciprocating a friendship, I don't know if you feel that.
Yeah.
Well,
So then I started to try to get back into watching some of the videos. And actually that did help spark some of my interest. Because when you watch, we've talked about this before, when you watch somebody else showing something they're working on their project, whether it's, any historical project or Battletech or anything, and you feel the excitement in and that triggers that in me on my own projects. It
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily make me want to pursue theirs, but I get that same feeling with mine, and that started to, I think, get the fire up from a small smolder to moving forward.
And you didn't miss anything on my channel, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Because I wasn't doing
I
anything.
did notice that, and even
Yeah.
Rusty was a
Yeah.
little bleak there, but yeah, there were some I missed tens and tens of videos on channels.
That is actually one of the kind of negative things with YouTube and content creation and things is that people do want to reciprocate, and sometimes people you dip in and you dip out, and you can feel guilty about that. And
Yeah.
I've actually kind of gotten to the point where I used to watch. You get to the point too where you subscribe to enough people and there's not enough time in the day.
Yeah,
I
I've got too many subscriptions.
And so one of the things for me, is I kind of just resigned to the fact that as long as I come in and watch, because I'm interested in folks' content, but as long as I catch a video here and there, if I miss one,
Yep.
then most normal folks won't. I kind of won't.
Well, yeah.
won't hate me too much.
Well, I always look at it from my perspective. If people watch or don't watch or comment or don't comment, it isn't like I just started my channel. And I'm happy if people get something from it, if they enjoy it, if they feel inspired to comment or ask a question, I'm happy to answer it and respond. But if they don't, I don't do it for anybody but myself, really,
Yeah.
and to share what I do and to be a part of the community, at least on some level.
Yeah. Looks like Chris Walkabout Games has joined in. Hello, Chris. He won't speak back, so we can keep talking. But
yeah. Oh, I was waiting for him to say something.
No.
I'm kidding.
He didn't join. And so Dan had his musty drinks before the show. And actually, it's true.
Yeah, I did.
He's been pre-mustied.
My wife works at the hospital, and so she needs a musty drink when she gets home.
Yeah.
And then I make her feel like she's not drinking by herself, and I have one. So it's one a night for this kid. So
your rum and Coke.
Yeah, I go rum and Coke, and I alternate with Jameson and ginger ale with the one with the lemon in it. You can get ginger ale with lemon, Canada Dry, and then a little bit of a lime, and so I go one night, one the other night, and yeah, it's good. It's good.
So I was thinking about making a Long Island iced tea tonight, but
that'd been good. I would have come over for that probably.
Yeah, if you have this, like next time you come over, it's like early. We'll start and make one when you first get here, and then you'll be hopefully sober by the time you leave.
Yeah, well, hopefully it helped my dice rolling. Anyway, that's true, Rusty. It's bad.
So there might be something to said, or it's like on your rolls, like, oh, I had a whole bunch of them go off the table. I need to re-roll everything. So.
Maybe I need to have you have a couple drinks. I'll be able to pull some wool over your eyes while on my re-rolls.
I've had that happen. It's like our last game we were playing, and it's like they were trying to pull the one where it's like, oh, I had one of my die fall off the table. I need to re-roll all of them. No, you're not. Re-roll the one that fell off the table. They're
Gonna
like,
have more
no.
drink.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Sorry, Palmer, we interrupted. Go
No,
for
no, no,
it.
it's okay. It's good. It's all good. I was actually thinking, we've got a couple more topics on the chopping block, and I think we've done pretty good with this one.
Catching up. Yeah. I think you're
Yeah.
right.
And so maybe we'll hit the next one. And I guess next
Are
one.
we caught up in the comments?
Well, we're never caught up in the comments, but I think we could go, definitely through here real quick here before we start. I got Clark's comment, and then Nick says, I read lore to get back my mojo, which definitely is something that we talk a lot about. Like getting interested in the background of what we do gets us interested in doing it. Todd says that Ecclesiastes is my favorite book, and now meditation's helping to tie it all together. And I think I'm older than Rusty. And so we got Chris in the house. Hello, how's it all going? And Todd is advertising his digits there, 51 and going. And looks like...
Oh, you're a youngster.
Yeah, he's younger than me, too.
Yeah.
Got the kids around.
I know.
What's Mr. Freeze looking at? 172 or 28 millimeter German vehicle?
This one is 148 scale Russian. I guess some of you guys started in later, so I'll do this.
Okay. So as I mix this paint up here, because I'm going to start painting on this topic.
Here.
Brad says...
there we go.
Taking breaks helps you keep motivated, but when you're burnout, a break is good. Yep.
Yeah.
Unless it's an arm. That's bad.
I think that's normally the case for me, that taking breaks can get you motivated, and that's usually the case every summer when I take like a month off. But I think the weird thing this time is that taking the break actually spiraled me into a major demotivation.
Well,
for the first time.
Yeah, my personality type, I don't really take breaks usually. I've done the same career my whole life. I like to get in my routine thing, and I don't like So and especially I hate to take a break from my fun thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fine to take a break from something that's either stressful or hard on you, but this was my stress reliever. So this was a little freaky not to be doing it.
Yeah.
But,
well, the next topic we were thinking of talking about was related to house rules and how people ever do them. Like, how do they incorporate house rules into their games, and what do they look like, and maybe why? Actually, I think, Dan, this was your suggestion. But as far as introducing the topic, was I wrong on that? It was yours.
Wasn't me.
Oh, I saw the stream of text and I got that wrong then. So Rusty, that's perfect, because I was kind of hoping you would start this one, just since Dan actually started the last one. Do you want to lead that one in and just sort of talk about your thoughts first?
Yeah, it's house rules, and basically is like you get some games that there's just, you got a certain rule you're just looking at, and it just doesn't seem to fit into the grand scheme of how you're playing the game. And the good example is, I'm going to bring up BattleTech for example. Like to say the machine gun ammo is the most devastating ammo in the entire game system, and it's machine gun ammo. You wouldn't expect something that mundane to be the most explosive thing in the game. So we always would do is divide the machine gun ammo by 20. So the most it ever does is like 10 points of damage.
Oh,
So if
okay.
it does go off. So it's like you're doing something like that where you're mitigating something out of the game that, is really extremely detrimental, that really shouldn't be when you think about it.
Mhm.
And, and then you look at other games where we experimented a little bit, where you look at some game systems like, this actually would better, instead of doing an you go, I go, change it to where you move a unit, I move a unit, instead of you moving everything and I move everything.
Mhm.
And it has a tendency to actually change the game a bit and make it better in some cases like that.
Right.
So that's kind of stuff that you're looking at. And a house rule isn't necessarily a bad thing. You're just taking something that could be a problem and just toning it down some.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you're based. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think for me, it's somewhat similar. I mean, I'm trying to think of the times when we house ruled, and like one of them was musket and tomahawks, rather than actually having 3 events potentially per game, because events sometimes can be fairly significant on the game. Happening. Sometimes we would just my opponent and I would agree at just putting like one event card in, and just having like the one event happen. Pretty sure that's what we did. And I can remember playing some Dragon Rampant at one point and mitigating a little bit just how powerful the undead were in the game. Like it just seemed really kind of a little unbalanced. It felt at the time, at least when we were first starting out and playing it. And so we would just sort of mitigate that in the same way, just tweak a couple of rules. One of them was an undead player and he was still all for it. I mean, we're not competitive. We just want to have fun. And if we feel like it's not, fun, like it's just a little overboard, then even the person that was playing the undead was totally up for that, because everybody wants to feel like everybody's kind of got a decent chance at the table.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely a time that certain things just don't make any sense, and you want to make it a lot easier to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think So, do you think it's a design flaw in the game, or is it a personal view on what's fun? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as somebody that's designed games myself, you look at certain things that will pop up, and you have this hell bent for leather type of thought process going on, where like, oh, this makes totally sense to you, and
Okay.
it's justified in your head, but then when it gets put into the rules, somebody looks at it and goes, that makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're playing the game yourself, then you turn around and go, oh, I'm going to change that to make it to where it actually makes sense to you. And I don't have
Yeah.
any problem with that. If your small group of people that's playing the game are all for it, and you all agree that that's the change, and you write it down, and then from there on it's kind of set in stone, then it's not a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're playing with the same basic group. Can't believe you get people to agree to something though.
That's the hard part.
Because
As we all know,
yeah.
it's like 2 people, 3 people, even 4 people can read the same rule and go, I have 4 different opinions on how it's supposed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's true, especially in some rules are better written than others as far as clarity.
Yeah,
And then
it's like we have that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then in miniature games, there's so many gray areas already, because how terrain interacts with things and how um, how much terrain you do have, or what is your play style, so it's different than a board game where you've got more limits and it's you're in this space or you're not, and you know what I mean.
Well, and I guess
Yeah.
there's probably so many house rules that at times we've done like little changes that I can't even remember them. But like even recently, I mentioned on a video, we're thinking about doing a little bit of second edition Warhammer 40K, and
Yeah.
basically, I was told because I didn't even know I didn't play. I played Rogue Trader, believe it or not. Like I mentioned that, but then I didn't play second edition. And I was told that you can play primitive beastmen, like basically fantasy beastmen, in Warhammer 40K second edition. But one of the rules when I read it was that you had to have so many human chaos cultists, to balance off the beastmen. Like you couldn't just have the beastmen with like your space marines or like your chaos space marines or whatever. Like you had to have a certain number of human cultists. And I don't have like at least old school human cultists, that I planned on painting. And so when I said that to my friend, he's like, well, we can just wing it. You know what I mean? Like we'll just use them anyway. Because we have the rules for them, and we'll just use them anyway. And I'm like, yeah, let's just use them anyway. As long as you're good with it, I am too.
Well,
We'll figure it out. If they're too powerful, then which I doubt the primitive beastmen are going to be the thing that turns the tide in Warhammer 40K.
Right.
But if they're too powerful, then we'll figure it out.
That's one of the things I'd be more likely to do is to, so that you can either use a piece of terrain that you've wanted to use, or use a unit that, because even like you can take Warhammer Fantasy, for example, too, because like most people know, I've been building that 5th edition force. Well, some of the units, they don't even appear in the 6th edition. And then there's 6th edition units that don't appear in the 5th. And then, of course, the older, whatever they called 3rd or 4th or whatever, where they actually had some Bretonians. That's a whole nother thing. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing I would be more likely to also do is like, well, how can we shoehorn that in there, for a fun game so you can use something that you've got that you want to use. I mean, but yeah, that's the kind of house ruling that I've done and looked at. I tend not to. I don't feel like I'm knowledgeable enough to question much of the rules as they're written, and I always think, well, it's because I'm not doing it right. Is why it doesn't make sense or it doesn't work.
It's probably not always the case, though.
No, probably not. And yeah, and then I guess I don't game. I to be honest, I don't play that many games anyway. Bolt Action's the only one I feel like I would be able to critique the rules at all. And other than the game I've had with Rusty, I pretty much just play with my local friend here, and we're more into the narrative style anyway. So we're like, oh, he's like a 1/4 inch short, and I'll just move him up there because it's going to be cool to see what happens. You know what I mean? But we don't really change the rules per se. We make sure it's a fun experience for both of us rather than an ultra competitive experience. I mean, we're both trying to win. So I guess we play the rules kind of loose, maybe is more what you would say than actual house ruling. But
yeah, we're playing our BattleTech campaign we got going on as narrative right now.
Cool.
And that seems to be works out pretty decent. It's got the guys in there that they're still kind of noobs at the game, so I like the idea of you set up scenarios instead of head to head. It's like you get your 50,000 points, I got my 50,000 points. Let's go fight.
Right.
It may be off. Seems to add a little bit more life to the game.
Yeah, sure. You bet.
Oh, I can see now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else with house rule. Like I kind of said before, sometimes I think we do it almost without realizing it. Like, we just agree to it and we don't even like say this is the house rule going forward. We just, you know what I mean? Like, but it's basically still house ruling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And some games are better at making house rules out of them versus the others, which seem to be set in stone.
Right.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, it's like right now we've been trying to play, that Battle Valor game system, and that's a game. Oh, that's a train wreck and a half right now.
Is it just because it's not clear enough written, well enough organized, or what?
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. It's like, when you got ambiguous type of stuff, it's like when somebody reads it and it seems to be up for, like I said, 4 people could read it and it's up for interpretation.
Yeah,
And then,
that's just needs
uh,
polished. Yeah.
yeah, I
I
just
mean,
feel like there wasn't enough play testing going on.
Mm-hmm.
and we can probably all talk about games we may have played or tried that just really didn't seem to work well for us. And you know, like I really didn't enjoy Rogue Stars that much. And I love the character creation component. I felt that it was really detailed and actually made me really like it. Like, the beginning, like of trying it. Like, but then I don't know if you ever played games where you put all your points into something, but it just doesn't really just seem to have any more survivability than something that has like a quarter of the points. Like if anybody's ever
Yeah.
experienced that in one form or another in a game, and that's a real turnoff. Like when you feel like, oh man, like you spend all these points, but it really doesn't affect the game that much.
Yeah, bolt action's got some issues with that on certain units.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't even mean like I'm not really even saying like, because you can really split hairs to the point where anybody says a game's not balanced, it's not balanced. I'm talking about something where you spend 3 to 4 times the points on an individual skirmish character, and then the other characters that are like the grunts have they all have like the same survivability. Like when you play the game, like time after time again, like your main guy just dies and falls down just as easily as anybody else, or dishes it out just as powerful, like no more powerful than anybody else. And it's a real turnoff, like, because if it's a game that's asymmetric where you are meant to create differences and those differences have value, if you play it and like you just don't find what you're doing is really creating any difference, then it kind of just takes out the fun out of making differences. And so that's kind of the way I felt at times with some games. And rather than house rule and actually you probably could house rule and actually take it upon yourself to make things more powerful or less powerful. But depending on how much you have to do with that, you might feel like you have to rewrite it. And then
not worth the investment.
Then it's not worth it. Yeah. You're just like, well, this isn't changing one thing. I'm changing like everything,
Well, especially nowadays when you got 100,000 different games you can play, it's easy to move on to the next one.
Yeah.
That wasn't my cup of tea. I'm not, maybe even we were playing it wrong, but hey, let's find something different, because every genre has got plenty of different rule sets to you anymore. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it most definitely adds up over time. It's like, you look at stuff and you're like, well, that's why I'm feeling like right now it's like I could just move on and to a different system when it comes to playing
Battle Valor
a fantasy game system.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you felt about the Armies of Arcana, because you had one game in, which wasn't really enough to.
Yeah, not enough to really get a. In general, I liked it. Yeah, I mean, I definitely would play it again. I couldn't be real critical of it. There was, I don't like to be that guy either. You play a game for a couple hours, one game against one person, and then you know how the rules should be totally rewritten. I mean, I'm not that guy. It has lots of potential, and it seemed like it worked well. Whether it's the kind of game that I would play for a large battle game in a smaller scale, couldn't say that for sure, but it's very functioning rule set.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's like when I look at when you look at that system versus the Battle Valor, it's like Armies of Arcana seems to be straightforward and having no problems. But
Yeah,
then
we
when
didn't
you
really
look
have
at the
any
other one,
trouble,
you're
and
like,
of course, you knew you were teaching me, so that we weren't on the same trying to interpret the rules, um, but it didn't seem to be confusing, and even where I read them and looked things up while we were playing, yeah, I think they were pretty tried and true.
Somebody spends 2 to 3 years to devise a rule set, and you play it once, and you're like, "Let me tell you everything wrong with."
Yeah, yeah. This game is broken, right? Famous first words after 2-hour game.
Yeah.
I like to give it more of a swing than that, because obviously somebody liked it, and
Yeah.
unless it just came out, and they've play tested, so it highly. I mean, yes, there's exceptions, but likely it's not a complete train wreck. Um, a lot of times, even like what Rusty was describing, I think is more of a. Sometimes I think when you got a close knit group of play testers and the designer all working together, there's too much that's unsaid. They got to remember they're talking to somebody that's never picked up the rule set, never talked to the designer. They don't know the angle he's coming from. So it can even just be like if somebody else wrote the rules are solid, they're just not well written. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, most
Yeah,
definitely.
that definitely could be the case, I think.
And
there
because even
are
when you try to explain something to somebody, and somebody that knows you knows exactly what you're saying, but this other person that's never met you is like lost on what you're talking about, even if they know the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
And that's not to say there
it's
are some
communication. Yeah.
smaller company rule sets that are made to be house ruled. There are some when you read the
Yeah.
beginning, they literally say change what you want. Like this isn't perfect, or this could be more enjoyable for some people this way, or if you see something that you like to do a little bit differently, then just change it.
Well, and that's the bottom line. It is just for fun. It's a hobby, and yeah, a lot of them do say this is use these as a guideline, a starting point.
Yeah.
I guess that's important to remember too, because sometimes there's some good raw materials there, and you hate to throw it away just because of some simple things you can't get past, but you could change on your own.
Just don't put a
Yeah,
video up
that's-
without saying that you changed something. Otherwise, people will just roll you over
Oh.
the coals.
Yeah.
So
So
we played one game and we have 50 different house rules to make it a better game.
So maybe I'll just take a quick gander at the comments here. And he goes, "Oh, I forgot Rusty was also Mr. Freeze. Funny." Yeah, that happened when Rusty started freezing up on us years ago, a long time
Yeah.
ago.
And the Mr. Freeze is my cell phone, so we had to use my cell phone to have a show.
And then Todd says, "Thanks. Well, I missed the scale and the nationality. I'm awesome." That must have been related to a certain comment. The scale and the nationality. Oh, maybe he was looking at your miniatures, Rusty. Yeah.
My kit. Well, let's just put it this way before we go any farther. The reason I picked this kit up, and Dan and I were discussing this, was that, let me see if I can get this to the same size. You can see this is the kit. This is the 156 that they expect you to use in the game.
Yeah.
And then you look at a miniature that is also goes in the game, and he's taller than the freaking car, armored car.
Yeah, it's like
it's like totally out. It's like, yeah, it's like that doesn't work. And then I got this 148 scale, and it's like, yeah, that's a lot bigger. It's about almost a 3/4 of an inch or more longer.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's
that's
probably
why
more
I got
in
that
scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick says, if you burn out, you have to take a break. Otherwise, you're just going to be banging your head against a brick wall. You see the brick wall is right behind Dan's head, right there.
Yeah,
That's
literally.
That's the one he was.
That's why.
And you do not want to bang your head on Nick's or on Dan's brick wall because they're sharp.
Yeah, that's why I stack all this crap up here so I don't accidentally hit my head.
And he has that evil Hawkeye banner in his room too.
Whoa,
like,
whoa.
So we got
The SmackDown.
Yeah.
very silent mouse. That milligram rule or the mig rule seems good. Or is it milligram or or mig that he's referring to? That's Nick there. It's probably from something we said from a bit ago.
Where is that? That MG rule for machine gun?
Machine gun rule seems good.
Yeah.
We got a question from
that's
a
the
Maggie
machine gun.
Buman. Is a Maggie Buman any relation?
Oh my gosh, yeah. She's my niece.
There you go. What's the most you've ever changed?
Most I've ever in regards to what, I wonder? Most I've ever changed.
Well, it's probably something we were talking about because we're going on and on.
I'm trying to
Maybe
remember the
changing a
context.
game.
Oh, like
Oh,
in a rule, like maybe
in a rule set.
in the house rules.
That'd be a good one for Rusty because I haven't done a lot of changing myself. Just small things on bolt action we've done, but
Well, I'd say the most common ones we've ever done would be it's not really changing the rules, it's just changing like certain weapon systems. You know, it's like Battletech, for example. Machine gun ammo, only you divide the ammo by 20, and that tells you how much explosive value it has.
oh sure.
Then you also and a autocannon, like an AC2, maybe shoots out 5 times, and AC5 maybe shoot out 3 times or 2 times or something like that. You know,
so what about that rule?
Increasing the damage output.
How about if you die that
What's
you get to come? How about if you die you get to come back at least one more time?
Just get a free reroll or something, right? Oh, I gotta give a quick. I gotta say hi quick to Maggie. Hi, Maggie. And then I was gonna say too that last night, my older brother, during the winter, we tried to get together one day a week, which is why I missed your show a couple times, to get together and do some board gaming. And anyway, he was here last night, and he brought over a couple of miniatures that he said that Maggie wanted primed, so that because those are gonna be her first 2 miniatures, and I don't know what inspired her to do that, but
Great.
it was one was a dragon and one was a little female like adventurer character.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited
Sounds
to
like
see
a D&D campaign.
Well,
see how she comes out on that. So that was pretty cool.
Very cool, and that is awesome.
Yeah.
And I wish I had somebody in my family that knew this stuff before I did, so that I could ask questions to.
Yeah, I know.
Like YouTube was really helpful for me, but it'd be very good to.
That's what I told her. So, yeah, and so I'm just she's artistic. Yeah, she's got some talent, and she just started college, so she's gonna, I'm sure it'll be amazing.
Yeah, that is cool.
So anyway.
Mini Warmut says a lot of instructions say at the end, it's your game, do what you want, which is totally true, like we were saying. Yeah. And finished 13 Romans with Gladius. Woohoo.
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
28 millimeter or what? Is that what he does?
Well, from what he was saying in his recent video, because he's talking about SPQR, I think that's typically larger miniatures, right? 28 mil.
28s, yeah, yep.
And he said he forgot the shields.
Yeah. Let's throw a transfer on there.
Maggie says, how long should the primer be tacky?
Well, this time of year, yeah, I know, because I primed them last night, and I'm sure she's anxious to start painting, and it just doesn't dry the fastest. I used a white, and I used that Rust-Oleum, which I have to set it. I told my brother to put it by a fan in a warmer room, and it'll dry a lot quicker. But yeah, it might be tacky. I a lot of times let it cure a couple of days this time of year. But anyway, that's just my experience.
She says that they're D&D miniatures.
Okay, that's what I thought they were. I don't know if she's going to use them for D&D or if she's just, painting them. But
yeah, Dad got a set of miniatures for D&D, and they're on the dining table.
Oh, there we are. Cool. Your dad rocks.
So, Dan, I think the next topic, you kind of brought up this idea of terrain, and I'm happy to go first and answer it. But I thought maybe rather than you had a bunch of things to say, because I know you're actually quite interested in some cool terrain like using foam board, and like you've spent a lot of time on your buildings. So why don't you introduce the topic the way you intended it?
Well, I didn't have a huge intent. It was one of those things just to see where it leads, but I couldn't remember that you'd really had a huge discussion on terrain. And my angle wasn't so much, how important is it to you and all that. I mean, that's interesting too. I was just more on a, well, yeah, I guess partly how important is it to you as far, do you, like for me personally, I enjoy making the terrain. As much as the painting. And some of that I think goes back to sort of my introduction to hobbying, was even just when I was before preteen even, my dad had gotten my brother and I a train layout, and he, on a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and made a table, which is actually the table that Rusty and I game on now that's in my room. We dismantled it and brought it here after I got married. But we had a model train layout. And so that model train layouts is obviously, other than get the train to run, it's all about the terrain. That's the scenery, I guess, is what they call it. But and I always enjoyed like dioramas and model scale, planes and shipbuilding also. And so then I guess for me, it was just when I got into trying to put all those pieces together. I liked painting miniatures. I liked playing games. I liked doing modeling and in like scenery or terrain. So this was an obvious hobby that I could combine all those interests, including either history or fantasy, both, which I enjoy, books, and for that. So that was a hobby that kind of combined that all together. And so when I started in like 2013, when I really came strongly into the hobby and actually had enough free time to consistently do it, that was one of the things it was like crawling out of a cave. I didn't know there was this many cool things, out there, and because I'd really been out of the loop. And then when I started looking at terrain, I guess Volt Action was the first real game that I committed to. I think I can paint that many miniatures. I mean, it doesn't take that many. And I thought, I'm going to see if I can really paint an army. I'd never done it. I'd painted bits of things and things just because I liked them, not necessarily for a game or for any purpose. And so I started looking at what on the terrain side, what I could do. And, and you look at all the things, there's resin, there's MDF, there's the plastic model kits, that Perry's and GW and others put out. And so I and papercraft, which I didn't realize that. And that's actually where I started, because I wasn't sure how committed I would be able to be to it. I didn't want to spend, $100 or a couple $100 on some stuff. And, even if you buy like the top notch, top shelf resin, it takes, it's unfinished. You got to, you can buy, or Tabletop World or any of that stuff. You got to clean it up and paint it yet too, and base it, or however you do it. So I just didn't know if I could commit. And I got looking around online, and I don't remember if it was through YouTube or what, but I discovered David Graffam paper models. And he's got a website and a store. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with him or not.
The name sounds familiar, but I can't actually say that I know for sure.
And he had one that you could get. There's like one or two really small, simple buildings that you can get that are pay what you want type thing, basically like free, or contribute, $1 or whatever you want. But so I did do that, and I was just blown away with what you can make. And they had layered, I'm not a techie guy, but you could layer it whether you wanted dirt on the walls or water stains or mold, or then the roof, he had four, like three different textures. It could be shingles or slate, or wood shingles or slate, or tile, or like thatched. And so anyway, you get this, and you kind of just put the windows. There'd be like three choices of windows, and you placed them where you wanted. And quite a bit of flexibility. And then you were just supposed to print them on heavy cardstock after you bought the PDF or and then it was all, you would cut it out and just fold it, and it had tabs to glue, and it was incredible, the shading and the 3D look he could get even just from a flat paper surface. And so I was just, that's where I kind of started, and I thought, and then I did buy a few from him, and you could customize them, and then I started launching into that. So then I went and put them, I started seeing people on his website there, or on his Facebook group, were showing how they'd put it on foam core to give it some strength and more of a 3D look, and then printing an interior for it also. And so I started doing some of that, and then I started to go a little further yet with that, and adding some of my own paint, and then adding some vines on the walls, and then I, of course, then I had basically I could fill a whole bolt action table with buildings that were David Graffam buildings that were all out of foam core.
I used a company that sounds almost exactly the same, but maybe just different. But it's like Red Dragon Games or something. And they're these like,
yeah,
you know them?
It's just like that.
Yeah, I used them for my Marvel stuff at first.
That's yes,
and they're really nice.
They are nice, right? And
they are.
But and then after I'd added and got really proficient at making, basically I glued all the cutouts, cut them all out, took the tabs off, cut the tabs off, and then just glued it onto foam core, and then built the buildings that way. And you had to get a little crafty with how you did that, but I made it so the roofs would remove, and and that made them not only sturdier, but it also I gave some thickness to the walls. Like if you left the door out, or a lot of the ones I used in the World War II gaming are ruined buildings and destroyed buildings, and so had exposed walls, and instead of being the thickness of a paper, they'd be as thick as the foam core. And then I found ways to disguise the edge of the foam core using like wood filler, and then painting that to match the brick that was on the printed paper. And it was like, wow. And then I started, just a lot of things. Then I'd even add my own little pieces, like with some some basswood. I could put a little destroyed second floor sticking out of the wall, and you could really take it to the next level. And then I thought I'd taken those about as far as they could go, and then I started, by this time I did, which was cool. I played a lot of games with just that foam core, paper. I mean, I wouldn't have had a couple big sheets of foam core, some glue, a little printer ink, and I bet I didn't pay more than like $15 for all the files, because he has sales once in a while, and you get sets, there'd be a bunch of them together, and so I was really happy with that. But then I start watching more YouTube, and you see other people's tables, and you're like, wow, that's amazing what they do with, with the MDF, the plastic, and then the resin. And by this time I was pretty deep in the hobby, and knowing that I loved it and that I would continue to do it long term. So I didn't mind investing a little bit more. And so then I did kind of jump to some of my foam core ones still make it to the table, but I kind of went into next I went into Total Battle Miniatures resin World War II buildings, which Rusty has seen those as well.
Yeah, I've seen them on your channel.
And
I believe I have.
Yeah, yep. And they're of course, that's a lot more expensive, and it's a UK company, which fortunately the couple years ago when I bought my main load of them, basically the one order I placed, they the shipping wasn't like it is now. It's I don't even know. But man, those are incredible. And then I started taking those to the next level, where I would make a base for it out of a sheet of, I think, press board is what they were calling it, and then modeling that and building and adding my own walls to it, and make it so the building could be removed to play just on the table, or it could be played on. Basically made a little diorama around each building then to add more story, more interest, especially on bolt action, where the more cover, the more, because for me, the game, it's about telling the story, and the terrain and the scenery sucks you in, and sells it. And I mean, I could just like, Rusty and I do it too, but my buddy Mark and I, that I mostly play bolt action with, I mean, we spend half the game just like getting down on the eye level, looking through, like, wow, come look at this. We're we forget we're like we're playing a game. It's just like we're like playing dolls or something. I don't know. It's like, wow, look how this is so cool, and so then
making the sound effects.
oh no, we wouldn't do that.
At least
I guess
not on camera.
what you do in the privacy
No,
of your
that's
own
too
home.
much.
That's too much. That's no. Then you'd be a nerd, right? So
Hey, wait. Yeah, we do. We do.
And then finally I'm like, okay, well, those are expensive and I don't know if I want to order. I've been several times I've had my cart full with a bunch more from Total Battle Miniatures to complete my set. And then I'm like, no, don't do it. And so then what I did, actually, I'm going to show, I started finding out that people were doing, I don't know where I found it, using foam core base. There's different, I don't know if it's just on Facebook groups or through like a bolt action terrain Facebook group. You see everything there. But there's a couple, this is a couple books that this is one of them. Let's see. And then this is by the same author.
Expand it there for a second.
There we go. David Wright. He's from the UK, and he's got these two books, and there might be one more, but they're what he does. He takes like foam core, and then he puts DOS clay, a thin layer. Like we're talking like just like 3 mils is what he says or less of DOS clay on the side, and then he sculpts into that the stone texture or the brick texture. And so then I actually, which has been on my channel, I don't know, I did it maybe a year ago or something, but it was, I made a stone barn and using that technique. And that was it did take some time, it had pros and cons as far as, could you fill a table that way? But you can make literally anything, right? The footprint can be whatever you want. And in 1 story or 2 stories or a shed off on the side of the barn or whatever. And through these books and watching some YouTube videos, I kind of learned the technique. I actually did the wet sculpting. Some people wait till it's completely dry and then sculpt it. I thought the wet sculpting worked a lot better. And I know you, Palmer, did some epoxy sculpt on that tower that you made a couple years ago. But it really it worked well. And I was like, okay, now I could do I can make anything using those same techniques. But it is time consuming,
Now, some people, maybe I'm wrong about this, but am I wrong to say that some people use the foam and literally carve into the foam?
Yeah. And some people will take like those green stuff rollers and actually roll it over the foam. They'll even take foam core and peel off, which I've done that. You can peel off the one side of the paper. Sometimes it comes easily. Sometimes you got to soak it for just a minute in water, let it float, and then it'll peel off. And then they carve directly into that foam.
Yeah.
The reason I stayed away from that was I was a little concerned about the durability of that, because even if you paint over it with Mod Podge or some white glue to try to firm it up, I was still afraid of, if it gets knocked and then all that sculpting is like bashed in, and so it was a little harder I wasn't getting the results because can't quite reach them. But over here, I did a couple little walls just to practice, see what I thought, because I was debating whether I'd just do that, because I've seen some amazing stuff on YouTube. But I know foam cores vary too, as far as how carvable they are.
You've never had go ahead.
And then even like the blue foam, I haven't tried to carve on that, but I don't know. I was always that just seemed like it wouldn't be. I want it to be sturdier than that, maybe. I don't know.
You never had the DOS clay ever get brittle or break on you?
No.
Okay.
Once it sets, it's hard. And what you do need to do, though, you need to put down some white glue on your foam. Don't mix it in the clay, but put it on the foam core. And then you roll out the clay on a hard surface, cut it kind of to size, and then you put it on there on that. And that glue then adheres it well. And then it once it cures, I'm not going to say I couldn't if I dropped it on my concrete basement floor, from 4 feet in the air. I don't know what it would do.
Sure.
But a
That's not what
resin
I'm
building,
talking.
that wouldn't be a happy picture probably either.
Yeah, but it doesn't get dry and kind of because it's an air dry clay, right? Or is it
it's an air dry
An air dry,
clay.
but it doesn't break on you. That's good.
Nope. And the main thing, I think the main thing on that is I work it fairly wet. I add plenty of water. It doesn't stick, and then you can really smooth it and shape it the way you want. And then I keep kind of wetting it while I'm carving it because it dries fairly quick. And then I haven't had to do it because in my basement it stays a cool temperature, and it seems like it dries slowly anyway. But they say the only reason it cracks is if it's drying unevenly too quick from the inside or from the outside in is the problem. So you can put like a damp paper towel over it to just slow the dry time down. That's the only, but once it sets, it is hard.
Oh, good. That's good.
Yeah. But anyway, so that was kind of my next step. And that's a lot easier than it looks. And all you need, like these 2 books I just showed, and then a couple sites on Facebook groups, you can learn everything you need to learn, and you can make anything. But that's just on buildings where my journey kind of started and ended. And I guess that was kind of one of the things. I always think it's interesting too to hear what other people's angles are on it. Do they like to make it? I'm always looking for new techniques. I'm always looking for new manufacturers too. And I know, whether 3D printing is a whole new world, whether you bought them already 3D printed, either resin or the plastic. I forget the acronym for that. Or of course there's MDF and the plastic, but what kind of manufacturers every once in a while, like I just stumbled on Total Battle Miniatures just in a weird way, or any of the different, there's the big ones everybody knows, Sarissa and Foreground and some of those, but then there's a lot of neat little small fringe stuff out there now too.
Absolutely. And I think the 3D printing part is another whole
That's a whole
bit of a quagmire kind of thing, as far as how that calculates into everything. I have I also find that and I'm actually going to show a picture here. I'm seeing whether I can blow it up or not. I might just show it like this. So when I get into when I get into a game, 3D printed.
This is the old 3D printed stuff.
Is that BattleTech or
these
Epic?
were running. Yes. Because BattleTech and Epic are supposed to be the same scale.
Are they? Oh, okay.
BattleTech started at 6 mil. It's up. The Catalyst in the last few changed it up to 10 mil, which makes it like freaking huge. But
it would. I think I show this book.
There's a big difference.
Oh yeah.
This was what I got this back in the 90s when I got into Warhammer, and actually my first couple terrain pieces I made back then I still have, and I just followed it out of here. And to be honest, for somebody that's literally just starting with terrain, this is not, and has an interest in making their own, this is still not a bad place to start. And it's copyright 96.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are excellent books. I'm going to show a picture here.
Back then, everything had to be made. You had to make your stuff back then.
It's still, I enjoy even the stuff I buy, converting it my own ways and trying to embellish it.
I don't know if you guys can see this.
Yeah.
This is when I core. Yeah, this is when I did the Savage core stuff. And granted, these trees are not scratch made, but all of these pieces here, these stalagmites and like this whole piece that it was on, like, even like just the bases for all this stuff was just stuff I just made from scratch, and it was fun. Like, I'm trying to remember what I did. I think I made dowels and made like mounds of plaster and stuff and then hardened it up. But I find whenever I get into a new game, and Savage Core isn't a good example because I haven't played a ton of it, but I did really look forward to getting into it and prepared a lot to play this game. And I did this with World of Twilight to some degree too. Mm-hmm. And I find that a big part of the inspiration for me in getting in is to really enjoy, the entire scene, and so like, oftentimes, even with Saga, like because it required specific terrain of certain sizes, I would spend a lot of time before getting into a game more on the terrain itself.
Mm-hmm.
And Musket and Tomahawks was kind of the same.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna stop sharing here for a second, but yeah, for me, that's a huge part of. I don't know. Maybe I didn't blow up the screen there. Did I blow up the screen there?
Yeah, it was big before.
Oh, it was
now
big
it's
screen.
fat.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Because I didn't hit the full screen
There you go.
separately. So I think that yeah, for me, like terrain's really important. It's a lot of fun. Having said that, that can be it can be a deterrent if I'm not willing to just
Mhm.
do like an entire thing just to try something. You know, like in some ways, not having the terrain is a deterrent. Like if I have a nice table already that I can use for another game I want to try,
Mhm.
that's
Yes.
that's a very great thing, you know, because I
Mhm.
know how much time it takes. And
Mhm.
although I like doing it, I don't necessarily always have the time to just jump into a new game and make like an entire world, you know, like just to try
Yeah,
it. And so
I'm the same. I'll turn away a game that I'd love to play, but I won't get into it because I'm not gonna. I'd love to do Blood and Plunder, but I'm
Mhm.
not gonna do all the Caribbean terrain. I don't. What I have crosses over to other things, and that's where I'm at. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta know what you're capable of. You know.
You have to choose your battles, you know,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah. You gotta keep the blinders on sometimes.
And so
Yeah,
yeah,
the,
like it's
well,
a two-way street.
with to go back to Blood and Plunger, once you get up into Florida, northern Florida,
Hmm.
deciduous trees that you may have for
Hmm.
28 mil works fine.
Hmm.
All you have to have is really just a coastal area if you want to have a ship. Otherwise,
Hmm.
you just have any type of colonial style buildings will work for
Yeah. I
that.
think for me to sell the theme though, it's got to be more Caribbean. Just, I need to have some Spanish style buildings. I got to have some palm trees just to really. I mean, I know that's stereotypical, and I'd have to. I'd full in. I'd have to be full in. The water would have to be greenish blue, and I mean, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Full immersion.
Full immersion. Yeah, that's it. Well, but Palmer, do you enjoy making the train, or would you rather just kind of buy the train? Is that fun
It's a
for
bit of
you?
both. It's a bit of both. Like I actually do find, I'll be honest with you, like okay, let me think. Gale Force 9
Yeah,
puts out like the river terrain and some other pieces
yeah.
that are not half bad for pretty different pieces, you know, for pre-bought stuff. And in some cases, all they require, if you want them to take a step further, is just a little bit of work.
Hmm.
And so I have their rivers, and I'm really happy with them.
Yeah,
Their river set. I would have no problem if I was to do a cowboy and western game to buy their desert-themed hills to just quickly get a game going. You know,
okay.
having said that, like it wouldn't like strike a nerve in me, like, oh, I can't use that. I haven't, you know, painted it myself. No, in the
Right.
same way, like with my miniatures that I do like to paint them, and I don't, you know, have
That's
other
what I
people paint them
wondered.
for me.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not like that with terrain to the same degree. Like I would incorporate it, but I always make my own terrain. So like
okay.
because of the amount of stuff that has to be on a table, I
Hmm.
would never fully buy a table
Hmm.
of terrain, but I would supplement, you know,
Right.
where I think it's and
Yep.
and and you know and also, you know, I'm kind of cheap in some ways too. Like I actually look at stuff that I don't have a sometimes I don't have the right attitude. And what I mean by that is I will sometimes look at something that will cost $50 to $70 or $60 Canadian, you know, or whatever,
Hmm.
and say, oh my God, like that's just too expensive. And, you know, like I'm not, you know, I would just make it myself, you know, and that'll be like my motivation. But then I'll
Yeah.
spend like a ridiculous amount of time on it, you know, and just that $50 to $70 was nothing compared to
That's the
the
way
time.
my barn was that I scratch built. It was almost to see if I could do it, and it was a joyful ride. But like you said, I worked a month on it basically.
Mhm.
And yeah, if you figured your time, that's true. Yeah.
Well, and it's just depending on the way you look at it. I mean, I guess we didn't you touched on maybe a little bit, but you mentioned MDF kits, but I do like MDF kits. And to me,
I know. Yeah.
Where is the line of totally scratch made? I mean, in the sense that
Yeah. Right.
I've made buildings totally from scratch, and then I've bought an MDF kits where I put a lot of time in them. They're not just painted brown. I spend a lot of time, like lots of
Right.
varying mixes of colors and blending, and inks and washes, and even all kinds of ground effects and whatever. And so by the time you're done with that, I mean, like, you spent a fair bit of time on it too. And
Right.
so for me, it's a fair bit of mixture, and I really quite actually like some of the like working with the MDF buildings. And that
I've
stuff.
never bought an MDF kit, and because I remember making the conscious choice on my bolt action table. I was like, I didn't want a mismatch of things that were, didn't look like they were born together. You know what I mean? They look like the same thing, and so that's why I started with the David Graffam. But then when I kind of jumped ship a little bit, I went just to Total Battle Miniatures. But I remember thinking about the MDF, and I've seen some, and yours included. I've seen some amazing things people can do with those kits. And I could make them mix in, I'm sure, but it's like I sort of like to keep it so it looks more uniform. What do you got? Is that MDF or you made that?
That's foam.
It's MDF.
Oh, is it MDF?
This is MDF.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have buildings that I'd made like almost exactly like that out of foam, and that's why when I looked at them, I'm like, that's foam.
Okay.
But yeah, that's really nice. It was for like 40K.
Yeah.
Or World War II.
For bolt action 40K.
Yeah. Stalingrad.
Nice.
Yeah, Stalingrad, Germany, France.
Yeah.
You name
Berlin. it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's
yeah.
Basically all I did. These were like $30 kits when I bought them back in the day.
Okay.
Probably bought them about 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
And when they first started really doing laser cut stuff.
Where from?
And,
is that important? Where do you know where you got them?
Yes, I do. I'm trying to remember what the name of the company is.
Like Gamecraft Minis or something, or
it's
stuff like
Terrain something is the name of it.
Something.
I got it bookmarked on my computer. So so basically all I did was I took the texture paint that you could buy, spray paint, and just put some tape over, because you can see there's brick details on that.
Yeah, that looks good. Yeah.
And so I just put a little bit of tape over the little brick areas, and then I put a texture spray paint you could buy, Krylon. Looks like my phone died.
Yeah.
I noticed Mr. Freeze dropped.
You just wanted a bigger screen.
Yeah, I found I don't know do you remember the blue mansion I did for or the blue plantation house for like musket and tomahawks and sharps practice?
That's Sarissa Precision.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No. Actually, that one wasn't.
Oh.
Most of them were, but that was Charlie Foxtrot models, I think, or it was Charlie Foxtrot models.
Okay. Yeah, I remember the blue one is what you're talking about now.
And
yeah.
Even just like you can take an MDF building that just has regular boards, like just straight boards across, and then you can layer paint on it and you can make it look like faded wood and stuff. You know what I mean? Like and you can really do a lot to spruce them up. And I did that too with my Source of Precision, like the yellow house, like just some of the different houses that I use for musket and tomahawks and things. And they're really quite good. At the end of the day, when you do something from scratch and you spend a lot of time, kind of like what you've done, like with some of your buildings, I mean, I think there's always going to be a difference, and also it's a personal thing too. Like you have a bit of a personal attachment to it. You know what I mean? And when you actually make it completely from scratch.
Well, and sometimes you have kind of an image in your head too, because I know different times I was looking at just like a stone barn that's kind of a French Normandy style French barn. Well, you'd see some and it's like, well, that's not what I was quite picturing, or this one's nice, but it's not the dimensions. I want it to be, bigger or wider, or I want a second story on, so that gives you a little flexibility there, I think too. But I mean, there's no wrong way. I'm not judging anybody's terrain.
Oh no, absolutely.
It's just I enjoy it, and I'm always looking for new ideas. I'm curious to see where other people are coming from on what they do and why they do it. And but yeah, because like you said, even an MDF kit, if you know, if you want to make it, you can make them incredibly cool and spend a lot of time. Also, it gives you a nice framework to start with,
A foundation,
a
like a
foundation,
foundation, exactly.
and you can, you know, I watched. I don't know if you've ever seen. There's what's his name on from Chain of Command. The author, what's his name?
The Two Fat Lardies.
Two Fat Lardies, but
yeah.
Anyway, the one guy he did a series of about 3 episodes a few years back, and I bet I watched him like 5 times, where he takes this MDF kit, I think from Charlie Foxtrot or somewhere, and he totally makes and he puts it like on a scenic base that he makes, and he was just chopping up foam core, and I mean, he wasn't nothing precise or neat about it, but his end product was gorgeous, and he totally altered the way it looked. But he started with the foundation there, and I guess that's part of, for me, the creativity. And you know, I didn't sculpt the miniature I'm painting. Right. You know, I don't mind starting from a raw product, but you make it your own, and I think that's part of it. And then trying to create the picture that you have in your mind of what either a, you know, Warhammer Fantasy table looks like, or a BattleTech table looks like, or, you know, and I think that's part of it. Sometimes I couldn't find a product that was quite what I was wanting, or it was more dollars, and some reason I thought I had more time than dollars, which maybe wasn't true.
When you limit yourself to purposefully to certain games because it's your passion and you want to focus on them and you don't want
then
to
you can really go in.
Well, and I think it's an invitation to just sort of
go
like really focus, you know, and like spend time on a house, and, you know, and not just spend time on building another game, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I think that's really helpful too. I think it parallels with it. We have had a couple of folks join us. I just want to say hello. We've got Doug Noble, as well as Paul Beckus have joined in.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah.
Hey,
and
Paul.
So Doug Noble says terrain and buildings are kind of an afterthought in my games.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with that.
Everybody's different. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. No, that's cool. It'd save me a lot of time if I was that way.
Well, and when I play Star Wars Armada, I don't think about terrain at all, right? It's cardboard pieces of, you know, asteroids, and there's some games I like to play where I don't have to actually even paint the miniature. To be honest, it's still a miniature game, but I don't paint the miniature, and you know, whatever.
I'd say our first space terrain was running out into the rock garden and grabbing a bunch of lava rocks for asteroids.
Yeah,
it's like throw them on the table.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's got trash terrain for the win.
Yeah, there's a good isn't that there's a YouTube channel, isn't it, called Trash Train? But he actually does. He literally digs garbage out of the trash.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
So we got Paul here. Hey boys, and looks like we are caught up.
I think that's one of the reasons too. Oh, sorry.
I would say when it comes to terrain, my biggest problem is wanting to take time away from painting to actually make something. I'm willing to sit down and you know, buy some terrain. Right now, with all the 3D printed stuff, it's kind of nice. I could just grab something and then paint it myself.
Yeah, that's totally valid. I think for me too, partly sometimes when I feel a little bit, you know, especially I know like when I was painting my American War of Independence, or even sometimes the Bretonians, you know, it gets a little monotonous and you get a little bit, you know, I don't even feel like I'm burned out. I'm still enjoying it, but I'm kind of all of a sudden I feel, because I got my table sitting, that's what my computer's sitting on, is my table's right here. And that kind of calls me once in a while, and so then it'll be a week or two, and actually on the floor I've got my next piece kind of laid out. I'm trying to see where it kind of jives, and all of a sudden the bulb goes on, and then I'll dive into that for a couple weeks and just have a great time with that. And I do one of that, and then I'm back to painting miniatures for a while. But I think sticking to my core games, which we've talked about before, helps me focus also on my terrain. Keeps me from buying into games that I know I don't have time for, either to paint or play. But if I had to make terrain for it, or even buy the terrain, it would. So I kind of stick to what I can the trees can be used anywhere, and I'll use those in my Warhammer Fantasy, and I'll use them in my World War II stuff, and they could be used in Lord of the Rings, and those are basically the only, the few games I would play. But I think that's and then it allows me to go deeper into it. So.
Yeah, a funny thing too is, I think many of us, Rusty's probably, I could be wrong about this, but I actually think from what I know of everybody here on the show tonight, that Rusty might play the most games.
So.
And so, and the funny thing is this isn't a leading question, and this is not steering you down an argument or an argument of discussion, Dan. But like, I think when I say like, how often do you play? Like, how often do you play? What would you say typically? Like, what would like how often do you get a game in? Would you say?
Well, of course, the last 2 years are a little bit kind of throws the skew off, but I would say most years, and I would get, I think, like with my buddy and I, we would get together not even once a month.
Okay. And
so I'll bet I literally get, if I get, not counting, I do go to one bold action tournament that in 2 days we play 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
That's just about an hour from me, and I do that each year. But otherwise, just which I do that mostly. I don't love the tournament scene, and I don't have as much fun there as I do when I play like with Rusty or with Mark, my buddy, where we get together in each other's houses and play a game. That's more fun. But yeah, I would say 6 to 8 times a year probably is the amount of games that I get in. And maybe that's part of my drive too, is because when I get that experience, I want it to be like, awesome.
Yeah.
I want the guest that's here to think it's a cool table and the miniatures are painted well, and it's all this planning and culmination.
You're like Willy Wonka, like when you come to the house, you're gonna like show the person into this other world.
Yes, because I spend more time planning and anticipating a game, and I mean it's dorky and nerdy as heck, but at the end, it's like looking forward to Christmas, knowing that I'm going to get a game, even if I don't have one scheduled. I'm adding a couple trees here and there. I'm knowing that this is going to be awesome.
And the reason I asked that is because I'm not that different. Like I probably play when I'm in my stride, I probably play on average 2 games a month. Like every other week, I'll play on a weekend. Maybe 3 out of 4 if it's a lot. And if I'm lucky, like maybe I play a little less one month and it's 3, 1 month or something. I don't know. But in any case, a lot of times when I see people that are totally into painting and totally into terrain making, it's not often a stretch that they're not playing 2 to 3 games a week. They're usually not. Like they're usually not people that are always going to the next game. Because when there's only so much time that people have, and it's the discussion. We're back to that old discussion. Are you more of a painter? Are you more of a gamer? Are you more of a collector? Like, what are you? When you think about it, if you're a painter or a terrain builder, then likely you're spending like most of your free time painting and building terrain. And then like if you're a wargamer too, you probably do like to get a game in on an occasion. You know what I mean? But it's hard if you're actually like, making little bicycles next to your building out of wire.
That never happened. That was the thing.
But you know what I'm saying? Like if you're doing that, and if you're actually like getting to a level of detail and it's really cool, like with the buildings and like making a beautiful table, and if you're doing that, like not over the course of a year, but like you take a month to do like a cool project and then you work on the next one and you keep going to the next one, then chances are you're probably not gaming every weekend or every other or twice a week, and it's just it's all a trade-off of what we do in the hobby, right? And it's kind of like there's some people that really like to game, and that's what they're about. It's like they want to play the game and like they want to game as much as possible. And so
I was going to say an interesting thing, kind of to circle back around to our burnout or our lack of hobby motivation. Some people are like, well, I have lack of motivation because I don't. We're not getting games in through COVID, or because my work's busy, I'm not getting games in. Games are motivating, but that isn't my motivation. So like you said, I'm maybe more of a painter and a terrain maker. But at the same time, though, I'm always building. Maybe I use the game as a framework for my collecting, and I'm always building a playable force, right?
Sure.
And part of my reason is too because I know I can't paint one up in 2 months. It's going to
Mhm.
take me a long time because of the way I do it. But that when I do have this, then if all of a sudden like somebody says, "Hey, you want?" or I meet somebody that let's get a game of this in, you're like, "Well, I'll get back to you in 6 months, maybe if I can get it painted, or built or whatever." And so this way, I always feel like I've got something ready to go for those rare games. But I guess I was going to say on the burnout thing, I remember when I was like having trouble getting remotivated here. One of my things kept sneaking into my head, and I don't know, maybe I was just being, self-pity or whatever. I was like, I don't get any games in anyway. Why am I even doing this? And I'd never questioned that before. That was never, I mean, I knew I wasn't getting games in and I didn't care. I was having fun. But here all of a sudden I was like, why am I even spending that much time painting this stuff that's nobody's gonna see it probably, and it will never hit the table. But then that one went away. That went away, and I was fine again. So I don't know if some of it, if I am dreaming of potentially gaming someday, or if it's more just it's guiding my collecting. I do enjoy the games I get, but sometimes the games aren't as much fun as my anticipation was, or
Mhm.
my terrain. Maybe I'm a dollhouser. That's what I'm making a 4x6 diorama. Maybe that's what I'm doing. I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
but like there's nothing wrong with that, and particularly,
no.
and if the inspiration is to also still be able to game with it, and you use that as an inspiration, like to me, I'm always also thinking about the game. Like I'm always thinking about using them,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
if I'm not, like very often. And then when I do, it's like I didn't get that many games of Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition in that I'd like to yet. And I, my friend that I play that game with, like we're totally down to continue to play. It's just we put other things in this queue. But getting 3 games of it in was a lot of fun. Like I mean, a
Right.
lot of fun. Like I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. And so even though I'm spending, 99.9% more time painting than I am
Mhm.
gaming, that 0.1% was still like a lot of fun and like worth it, like
Right.
to do. But I don't know if you guys can both sort of identify with this, but once you start painting an army, like like let's say you're playing a game that has a large army for
Mhm.
or a large force for whatever you're doing, getting to a point where you're putting it all out and looking at it like all as an army has a little bit of fun associated with it as well. You know what I mean? Like even just
You're not wrong.
yeah, like with my like I when I like lay out all my beast men or all my French Indian War stuff, you get to the point where you get caught up in it. Like
Yes.
like
Yes.
and now every time I add something else, it's bigger and it's even bigger.
Yes. Yes. Well, do you feel like you need to think you're going to get a game in to justify your purchase or your time, even
little
in a
bit.
Yes.
subconscious way? Yeah.
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 I do feel that way. I do feel like
Which
I
is
do.
weird, right?
Yeah.
That shouldn't matter, right? Or not?
Yeah. I do tell myself that like there's certain army I'm not really selling stuff. I on a rare occasion if I sold stuff that I painted. I sold some Malifaux stuff. And I was really happy that somebody bought it on eBay because I'd never sold painted miniatures before. And I was very
Trepidatious. Yeah.
yes. And I was like, should I charge this much? Well, I think it's pretty good. And like I've seen what
Yeah.
these other people are doing, but I put some stuff out there and they were bought and I was really happy about that in some ways. In some ways I was really happy that somebody thought they were worth buying,
Right.
But then at the same time, I've said to myself that my French Indian War collection will basically go with me to the grave. Like
Mhm.
whatever, like my kids and their kids or whatever want to do with it. Once I'm done, once I'm out of the picture, they can do whatever they want. But it's going to sit on shelves in a display cabinet for the rest of my life. And so for me, whether if I stop getting games, it doesn't matter. It's not going anywhere. But there are other things, but there are times when even with the average thing, I feel bad about having something in a box, like just sitting in the room and just not ever using it. It feels like a wasted purchase in some ways. And then on other ways, I'll say, well, I learned a lot in painting the miniatures, and I try to justify it that way. But
I just enjoyed doing the painting. I I like to think I'll get a game in, and I really enjoy the games I get in, especially if stuff that you've worked hard to paint. But I feel I have no problem on painting something, and I don't speed paint it either. You know, it's because and that there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, I'm not trying to paint to win a contest necessarily, because there's always more I could do. But I paint to where I'm like, I'm pretty proud of this miniature, you know, and then I'm just happy. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the process of you know, painting it, cleaning it, and you know, and deciding your colors, and watching, you know, how you learn to do washes and glazes and mixing paints. And I don't feel that at all. I just know I can only paint about so much. I have too many already to paint in my lifetime.
Yeah.
What's the question, Rusty?
Do you feel that your painted miniatures are like little children that you cannot get rid of?
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't feel like they're
put
children
so much time
because I could never. I don't think I could sell any of them.
I already have remorse on the Malifaux ones that I sold.
Do you really?
Yeah. Well, when I say remorse, like, I don't mean like, you know, I'm gnashing my teeth, you know, in the biblical sense or whatever.
Cry yourself to sleep.
Yeah, like what I'm saying is, it's like, when I think about it, I liked them, but I just was never going to use them, so I justified selling them.
That doesn't bother me if I'm never going to use them.
Well, I was never going to use them, but I probably would have been fine to have them in a display case, because I just like them. Like, I kind of like them, and they're just different. Like, they were very like steampunk looking and looked very. I like the look of them, and so, but I have them on video, like on YouTube, and so I can always actually go back and look at them if I want. But
the golden.
They're all grown up now, Palmer. You got to let them go.
They're somewhere out in the world. Is where they are. They're somewhere
finding
out in
their
the
own way.
Yeah. That's and so got a couple comments in here. We got Doug Noble.
Yeah, but I won't sell anything I've painted. I don't think I can.
Yeah,
I just, it was too much. If nothing else, I'm getting this. I remember the frame of mind, or what I was doing, or what the kids were doing when it's just, and they're not worth that much anyway. I mean, you know, even the Bretonians. So what if you got $1,000 or $1,500? I mean, that's not gonna. If I need $1,500 to survive, you know, I've got other problems.
Oh, and for me, it wasn't about money, actually, to be quite honest. It was actually more about space and just having clutter and stuff, and just having stuff around, like just making up space is really and at the time, you know, like I might not have done it again, you know, thinking about it again, and it's the only time I've ever have done that. But I guess, like I said before, though, in some ways I do think it was kind of cool to sell something and have somebody actually want to buy it, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, I do have that feeling that Rusty said, that I don't like to you know, things that I spend time on, and you know, I don't like to necessarily sell them. Doug says, cool thing about Fire and Fury rules was a set of ACW buildings one could build and paint.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Fire and Fury. And that's on a small scale too. That's intriguing. I just can't do another scale because I'd have to build all that terrain.
Paul says, gotta get 3 games in before I feel justified my time and purchase. It's a mental thing.
Yeah.
That's
common.
I do this stupid thing in my head. Anytime I do a purchase of anything that I may or may not use, sometimes I'll psychologically, every time I use it, I'll divide the purchase in half. And then the next time I use it, I'll divide it in half.
You know, I did that with it. Yes, I do that. No, you're not,
in my head.
The Lone,
and once
not
I get
the Lone Ranger. Yeah.
In a certain time, it's like, now it's only $5. I've used it
so
many
times.
I
could throw it away now, and it paid for itself.
Yeah. Or when I do that, I justify how much it cost me. So the first time I use it, it cost me $50. So the second time I use it,
it's 25
that actually
each.
It was 25. It cost me 25 to use it each time. And
then I do that.
Yeah. I don't do that too often, but I have done that.
I've
is
done
like
that
that rationalization.
On bigger purchases, I've done that, you know, and then you're like, wow, yeah.
So Paul says, skip bin, Palmer. That's where it will go. And so what is the skip bin? Is that, what is that referring to? Like,
I don't know what that means.
Is that
It'd be an Australian thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that an Australian
I don't
thing?
know.
Maybe Paul can
it's
almost like I've heard that before, but
clearance bin?
the clearance maybe. Like I've heard that before. But then Paul says, I don't sell anything that I've painted. And I can understand that. I mean, it's a personal thing when you spend that much time on something. I can definitely understand it.
And I'm still proud of my old stuff.
I have sold a ton of my stuff. So
yeah, I knew you'd said that.
Yeah.
You're a more prolific painter. If I sold half of what I had, I wouldn't have anything left. You know, I don't have that much.
Having said that, Doug says I sold all my miniatures in 2000.
I know, I saw that.
That started up a few years later.
Hopefully he was buying new stuff and not trying to get the old stuff back, because then that's twice as much usually.
Wow. And we got Mini Warma goes, Palmer watches his Malifaux mini videos and screams, Malifaux! Like Tom Hanks yelling at Wilson.
Wilson! Oh, God.
I miss you.
Oh, big
Why
rubbish.
did you
Big...
leave?
No, you mock me. I'm deleting this video.
Yeah, in the trash can. That's what Paul was saying. Okay.
Big rubbish bin.
The skip bin's the rubbish bin.
You know what would be kind of ironic is if I looked for my own miniatures and saw them on eBay. You're selling them? How dare you?
I have found my miniatures that I have painted and sold, and found them like Dystopian War stuff that I've painted up, because I used to paint a fleet a week.
Okay.
And sell.
Yeah, you said that.
And
did you buy them back?
No, I wouldn't buy them back, because it's like I look at
that crappy
like,
paint job.
I would never buy that stuff.
And it's like you look, it's like I bet you if you turned that over, took a picture of it, you see my signature at the bottom.
Actually, Palmer, I bought your Malifaux minis because I was afraid you'd be it hurt your feelings if nobody bid.
That's right. That's right.
Do you want them back?
Yeah. You could have them for free. That's funny. Paul says big rubbish bin. That's the skip bin. And
yeah.
Chris says skip is a trash bin, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Iowa, so you know that's always my go-to answer. I don't know. I don't know anything.
I don't know anything. I just live here.
Paul says our wives are going to order one in when we die and throw all our stuff in. That's right.
Yeah. At least I won't know.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of it's like what people say about art thieves is that they need to take an education in art so they know which ones are worth money.
Well, that's what I said. I would tell my wife before I die that you don't tell me, but these can be thrown away. But these, if you want some cash for them, you can get cash for these.
That's right. That's right. That's funny.
We all know our wives will live longer than we do, so.
Well, and I love to tell this story, but I'm pretty sure I've told this on the show. How one time my wife was at a convention and she met a friend from college, and they were out to dinner and they were just talking about their lives. And her friend says, something about, I think it was that my wife said something about how her husband paints miniatures. And then like her friend was like, oh my God, yours does too.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I would be tickled if my wife could tell me that was a story that she could tell me.
Yeah.
Because I know if she said it to anybody I know, they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
I do give away miniatures as Christmas ornaments at Christmas, but otherwise I don't give any away or sell anything that I've painted. But
well, and I think it was this time last year you actually pulled some out. Like you told us about that.
Yeah, and I did it again this year. I didn't put video up, but my one daughter, she's into the Christmas Carol, and Wargames Foundry does a Christmas Carol set, and that you buy individually in groups of 3 or 4. And so each year I give her a couple of those that I've painted up.
Oh, that's nice.
And then I'm doing like a nativity thing for my youngest daughter each year, it was a shepherd and a sheep this year. So, and then putting a little eyelet in their head so they can go on the tree, and that way they can get them out each year, look at them, and they get packed away. It's not a knickknack on a shelf or something.
That's cool about that is, are they metal?
Yeah.
Like from Foundry? The thing that's cool about that is, to me, is that they're kind of like an old school ornament too, because You know, like there was a time when like they used ornaments that they just don't make anymore, you know, like that were metal and things like that. And
Yeah.
so that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, and I put the year and the little message on the bottom, and it's kind of fun, and it doesn't take me long to do, and you know, share your talent. Not that it's talent, but share what I do. How about that?
Yeah. I'm looking to eventually what I'd like to do is make you know how they sell like little glass domes that you can buy that you can put like on top of a piece of wood.
Mhm.
What I want to do is make like little dioramas with some miniatures that I've collected over the years, like for
That's cool.
you know one each for one daughter, like, and I just have like
Yeah,
ideas on that. I just have to get the domes. I've thought
yeah,
about it for years. I've just not bought the domes.
yeah. You
That's
got
the
to
hardest
do it,
part. That's the hardest
especially
part.
a gift from a dad to a daughter. That's always that's a thing they'll treasure.
Yeah, yeah,
Remember all that.
absolutely.
That'll bring back a lot of
That's a pretty
memories.
good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just and then I was thinking about maybe putting LED light in the bottom too, like to light it up on the inside, you
Mhm.
know. But that
Dang.
that's getting
Dang.
a little advanced for me actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, me too. I can't help you there.
So, but yeah, those are fun things. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's fun.
um, what do you got here? Chris says, I told my wife she would be a rich woman when I die. You need to create the miniature manifest. And I don't mean small manifest, but just the big manifest of miniatures.
Oh, I was gonna just while we were finishing up the train, I was gonna show this tree. Whoa,
Oh,
there we
sure.
are.
We
Because I know we've talked about trees before. Okay, because I started with just the woodland scenics trees, like I think a lot of people do,
mhm.
and this is the woodland scenics armature. But you put that foam that they give you on, and it's constantly falling off,
Falling
right?
off.
It's never ending. No matter what glue you use, I've used other glues, it doesn't stay on. So this was what I did, taking it to the next step. I used the same armatures, which you can buy packs of just the armature, and
But
then I
horsehair.
used the horsehair.
Well, because we've talked about that.
Yes, but I didn't have
Yeah.
one. I didn't have one to show, and then I just
Yeah,
put a
yeah.
washer on the bottom to give it some weight.
Nice.
But yeah, I used the horsehair, and you can. I think which it's basically they use it in upholstery. So I got
Mhm.
it from an upholstery store, and it was what I got. Just came in this chunk, and it was cheap as dirt.
Oh, wow.
And you just cut off a little piece, and this would be for a whole car seat, and I mean, you're barely using any, and you just tease it out and into these little pieces, and then I used a high tack, whatever your favorite high, incredible tack glue is, to just glue that on there and then wait for that to dry, and then I spray painted it a couple different colors of brown and black, and then just did a quick dry brush, um, and then used I believe it's Woodland Scenics the coarse turf,
Yeah.
and I just lathered this in white glue and put that on top, let it dry, and then sprayed it with cheapest can of hairspray, like they always say to do. And this thing is, I mean, it's freaking indestructible, and nothing comes off of it.
Mhm.
And so that, I mean, because I hated those woodland scenic trees,
Yeah.
and this is still same price. You get the same, and then you get a more of an airy look. You can get different shapes a lot easier, also from
Do you
this.
like the horsehair primarily for the foundation it gives?
Yes, because that's what's giving your lattice to work with. Because when you glue onto just the armature itself, there's quite a bit of branching up in there, but not enough to where you need to kind of. I mean, there's not enough for that foam to grip to, is the
Mhm.
problem. And each one of these kind of there's whoa, like a clump here, and there's a clump here and a clump here and a clump here, and you just kind of work it around till you get a shape you like, and
Mhm.
then that is indestructible, and it just takes a light coating where you can still see the branches through the tree.
Sure.
So it has kind of an open look, and this is the only one I've made so far, because I made it also metal on the bottom, so it was magnetized to go into one of the scenic bases I'd made for one of my buildings, so I
Mhm.
could take it out to if it was in the way, or put a smaller tree in there also. Actually, I did make another one, I forgot. But anyway, I'm never going. That's to me is the answer. It's like that's the new golden standard for me.
Well, one of the things, and I think one of the things that I was hoping to do, and I've said I do this forever because I literally remember pulling out the bag of horsehair on the show, like when we were talking that one time. And
Yes.
I've not used that since then.
Okay.
Like that's the last time I've touched it. But one of the things that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I like watched lots of videos on it, is I wanted to do a wire tree.
Yeah, that's tempting.
And so I want to do the wire tree. I want to do some nice large trees for like my French Indian War table, like where it really looks like one of these old trees, like in America, early, and then to use the horsehair to do kind of what you described for the leaves, but to have a bit of that natural look,
Yes.
and also you can just, like you were saying with the horsehair and how you can create lots of variation, like with the wire trees, you can create all kinds of looking trees,
Yes.
And so I was hoping to do that, but I have the wooden scenics, which they're nice foundational kind of tree, miniatures essentially, as well. And I use those forever with musket and tomahawks.
That's what most of my table still is. I want to slowly replace them with these trees, just for durability. You could throw these you could throw 30 of them in a box and haul them to a game day, and I mean you wouldn't lose, a teaspoon of flock off of them. They're that tough. So that was just a thing. I wished I'd known about it sooner, because I've redone my woodland scenic trees with the foam multiple times as it kept falling off, and then gluing it back on with this other glue, or just really smearing it in glue and putting it on. Didn't matter, and I wish somebody had said, hey, quit doing that.
and so I can completely sympathize with having like boxes of terrain with like little pieces of foam all over the bottom, and then just having foam falling all over the place, and it's really annoying. But when you say that these things are rock hard, because I've used the hairspray and I've used white glue,
like rock hard.
But
like
when you say that
I can squeeze it,
right? But when you say that it ain't going anywhere, do you attribute that primarily to the big lather of the white glue, or do you attribute that primarily to the hairspray?
Probably the white glue is what's really holding it. But since it's the coarser, because like I use their fine turf for any of my grass type. Like when I do a scenic base, or my table is basically covered in the fine, but the coarse, it's a little bit bigger chunks, and so you don't have to. It's not solid thick, so you're like sprinkling on, large flakes kind of, but they're small enough that they do stick to the glue. The glue is really doing the heavy lifting, because that horsehair has so much mass to it, and then you just get so each little piece is hanging on sometimes a couple places, and then the hairspray is just because you've got some that's maybe not quite in the glue, because even after I shake it off, maybe even put a little more in it until I got the look I wanted, the hairspray just seems like that just really kind of seals it up then. Where that foam doesn't really have that foam feel to it anymore, even, because you really saturate it.
And you said twice you do the hairspray, like?
Yeah, I did. And then I just got the ultra hold, cheapest big jumbo can you can get, which my daughters come down and used to borrow once in a while. She's like, Dad, this stuff's freaking like glue. I'm like, yeah, back off.
That's not for you.
That's not for you. Oh, no, just one other terrain thing I would share too was something to do with your old we're up there. Your old. This is a 25 millimeter miniature, which I had. It's a Royal Partha one, and I'm like, what do you do with? They're out of scale for everything. Nowadays. So I just this is just built out of foam core, and it just made a statue out of it. Painted it bronze. Then
nice. That's an awesome.
But it's so easy to do, and you put that on the table. I mean, it can be anywhere. It could be fantasy or science fiction, or this is supposed to be in like a little sitting area in a small French village is where my setting is. But anyway, that's just another. And I put that together in like a couple of days. Just glued it all down, painted and dry brushed quick, and bam.
That's great.
A fun thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty good idea.
Doug Noble says, I did paint a Lewis and Clark diorama built by IMAX, a rare non-wargaming project. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Actually.
Huh.
Yeah. like pretty impressive project to be able to work on.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
For sure.
Yeah, that's over. I'm not in that level. I don't think quite there.
Well, I know when I was talking about epoxy sculpt, I don't know if Chris is still in the room, but from Walkabout Games, he was like, "Yeah, I remember him saying, you know, I worked at a museum where I used that stuff on for a dinosaur's tooth," is what he had said.
Wow,
You know, and I was like,
yeah,
"Wow,
yeah.
that's pretty impressive."
Wish that was my job.
Yeah, that'd be kind of
Cool. Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. Yeah, because I've looked at doing the trees like you'd mentioned, Palmer, too. And man, you can, and then you literally can make it however you want and get some really realistic results. I think for me personally, the reason I didn't, and I toyed with it, but I decided, gosh, it was going to be a lot more work and time commitment. And I thought, you know, I want a table with, you know, I like the table if there's like 30 some individual trees scattered all around. I thought, well, that's not going to be realistic. You know, like you said, pick your battles, know your limits type thing, and bang for your buck or whatever, or your time. And so I didn't, but like on a diorama, I'd be all in on doing that.
And for me, like I could see it when you want some standout trees on a table, like you're doing like some, you have one or two that are kind of really nice like that. And for the World of Twilight game that I was really into, and they had a demonstration table and they showed a tree that was like really fantastical. It was like kind of went like this, like over, and it was like, you know, over the board. It was like this really cool looking tree, but I could tell they made it custom, you know, and so I think that's where it kind of comes in, you know. So in my mind,
BK just quick.
Fraser.
Yeah, I'm still
off to work.
up.
Looking forward to watching when I get home.
Catching up on his videos. He's always doing some inspirational stuff too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm way behind.
Lots. I like those. Last he had the crossbow, mounted crossbow.
Yeah, really wish cool. I could paint my medieval stuff as fast as he's cranking that out. Wow, it's gorgeous stuff. Yeah.
And Paul says, "VK hiding away there. See you, mate."
Yeah, I'm behind on Paul's videos too. Yeah, I'm behind on everybody's. Sorry, guys.
Chris is still there, and he says, "Bear's jaw and dino tooth and many other things while I was there." That's very cool.
Yeah, wow. Cool.
Kind of neat to touch something that was like millions of years old.
Yeah.
It's like,
no. I'm old, but not that old.
I got a lot of fossils, you know. I'm also a geologist, so
I've got half of it or 3/4 of a geology major before I switched to biology and environmental studies, but yeah, it was good stuff.
I enjoyed my paleontology classes.
I liked mineralogy. That was my favorite.
Yes.
That was fun.
That would have been good too.
Talking about terrain still, even when we've left the subject.
I think that's one of the things I like about, again, the painting and the terrain is the creativity. I think and I like to handle the materials. I'm a hands-on person. I like you said, even just when you sit down at your desk and start handling the paints and brushes, and it's just, and creating. I just love creating, you know, and all you have to do is please yourself, right? So I'm not trying to match up to anybody else's standard, which sometimes I have found YouTube can be a little harsh on that, because I'm like, wow, okay, so I don't paint anything like that. Or Facebook groups are worse. People will post pictures of what they painted, and it's oftentimes inspirational, but sometimes it's kind of, wow, that's over me.
Chris says, now I deal with bad people, but lots of laughs, but I make more money. You got to get paid more to deal with the bad people. I mean, it's the way it works.
I won't ask questions.
Yeah, that's right.
He's probably sent here to kind of make sure we're not doing something illegal here.
There you go.
Geez, Rusty, you've been busy. I haven't done so much as that, but
yeah, I'm not even going to show what I did. I got one base coat of just skin, nothing else on the 5 guys. But
I highlighted one of my guys.
Nice.
I get this turret on.
So how'd it go together, Rusty? Quality kit? Thumbs up? Thumbs down?
Yeah, easy kit. Very good. Very good, very good. If I had my phone hadn't died,
oh yeah, I could have watched it happen. Well, Tamia or Tamia or however people say it, I built some of those back in the day, and they were quite good, and they do have a high reputation still.
Mhm.
All right, so you got the 180 BD kit versus
only-
the other ones.
Oh, they had a baby. The only thing I would say, Rusty, is you should run the little one because it can hunk. Since it's true line of sight game, you're going to want to, if you're going to a tournament, bring the little one. If we're playing, bring the big one.
Yeah.
You can hide behind a shrub with that little guy.
I know. It's like you look at here's the little guy, and you look at the infantry guy here. He's taller than the vehicle.
Yeah, he'd look like the Shriners or
He's
something.
not even standing up straight.
Yeah, he's all
Yeah, and then you
crouched
look
over.
at this one.
Yeah, he
big
could actually
difference.
probably
Yeah.
sit in
Hide
there.
behind it.
Yeah, it's a
Like, you can have-
BA-64, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, gentlemen,
Yeah,
I
have
think
to call it.
I think it's I
Time
think
for
we've
the
kind of
gathering.
got through our topics here. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of great chat in the chat room.
I feel like we should be doing Sound of Music. So long, farewell.
That's right. So everybody,
I'll be here to say good night.
But yeah,
Yeah, it's
time for me
It's
to.
been a while since I sit and watched the Von Trapp family.
That's a seasonal thing. You got to do it at Christmas.
That's one of like my wife's favorite movie, like pretty much.
That's good-
So
good
yeah,
stuff.
I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me on, guys. It's good to
Absolutely.
kind of catch up, and especially now that I'm just getting back into the groove again. It's some more motivation too. So
Always welcome. Always welcome.
Well,
And
just to say one thing, it's like we had it took a year for Dan and I of planning to be able to play one AWI game
hmm
from the get go. It's all right. We plan on doing this. Dan had a major head start. I mean, I had to rush an army to the field.
did your outfits fit for that game? I don't remember what you said.
outfits.
Did you the buckles and all the buckles and stuff?
Mine were
Well.
perfect.
And the stockings, you know.
I got in trouble for using a Betsy Ross flag when I posted a picture on a Facebook group. Of course.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
we'll leave that lay.
I
said yes,
Well, it was a
I
lot
know.
of planning. It was a lot of planning.
Yes, it was a lot. Well,
Yeah.
my job isn't very free time friendly. Partly, but that's
true.
okay.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thanks everybody for coming tonight. It's been a lot of fun, and we will see you hopefully if we're a little bit not as good this year as we have been in the past, but hopefully we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I might have brought
Yeah,
you
over
down a
here.
little bit. Kind of the anchor.
No, I mean we haven't been coming on as
Oh.
often, is what I
Wow.
mean.
Yeah.
I don't mean to show Dan. No, it's been a great show.
Wow, I was a little butthurt, but that's okay.
No, we haven't been making it every 2 weeks, but hopefully we'll be back in 2 weeks. And so,
And maybe this next time I'll remember my Fratelli glass for having an ale
that's right. There you go.
from
That's
Toys,
perfect.
Christmas
Well,
Story. My
Yeah.
Remember to charge your
Christmas story
phone
glass.
too.
Charge
Well,
the
my phone was fully charged. I forgot to plug it in while I had it doing stuff.
That
Like
comes
last-
with old age, Rusty.
Yeah, well, I just had
You
another
know?
birthday, so
That's right.
Hey.
Finally hit
All right.
the old big
49.
5'7".
5'7". Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
maybe he hit 49. I didn't know.
49 was a long time ago.
Yeah, well,
It's like
it only.
we've been doing
Gets
this
better.
show 5 years now.
This is the 5th season.
Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
kid when you guys started. I remember he looked so much younger.
My hair hasn't grown since then. Since I was a baby. Like,
Yeah.
Well, I'm
when we
making up
started the
for.
show.
I'm getting a haircut on Monday, so I'm making up for all you guys. I got more.
I was
hair than
wondering whether you were trying out for the monkeys or something. I wasn't.
Well, I'll tell you what. When you're
Really?
out, when you're out in the cold, the more hair, the better.
Well,
This is the guy
usually
that
in the
works
wintertime, I cut
outside.
mine
These are the guys that don't.
That's right.
In the wintertime, I
Yeah, this
cut
is
mine
true.
short so I can put on more stuff on my head. And then when I take it,
Oh,
the
I put
stocking
stuff
cap
on my head on top of that.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
when
I-
I pulled my stocking cap, I don't have the helmet head, type work.
Palmer wouldn't last 3 seconds out there. Look at that.
Well, that's why they have these things called toques in Canada. They even have a special name for their winter hats.
I
But
could use one.
I have a feeling that once we're saying we're leaving,
Yeah, we get.
there's just no way to stop. So,
Just
all right.
can't do it. Pull the
Yeah,
plug.
that's right. Okay, ending broadcast. See everybody in 2 weeks.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.